This is my planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551 Olympus Swoosh. Taeye's dazzling light hit Xia Guixuan's chest. Dong Huang Taeye, who had looked terrified before, now looked furious and fierce. The cruelty in his eyes made Xia Guixuan unable to find any trace of the once elegant Taeye. In contrast, Xia Guixuan began to smile. Brainflower was right. It was really fucking cool to cause chaos. In fact, he didn't even know he was going to do this before he broke through the 9 heavens. He just did it when he was excited. He didn't care about anything. How cool it felt to smash everything. Who told the other party not to be prepared at all? It's what he deserved. Let's see if you can still borrow the power of the 3 realms. It was so comfortable to flip the table that it didn't feel strong enough to fight with others. Pa! Xia Guixuan spread his left hand to resist Taeye's dazzling light, causing it to deviate. His right hand was lightly raised, and a shadow emerged, whistling towards the 5 elements and 4 gods. The light split and the shadows, the 2 yin and yang emerged, and the Tai Chi rotated, reaching the earth and the sky. Countless magical powers from afar were absorbed by Tai Chi like a millstone and crushed. Taeye, who was close in front, was led to deviation. The core of the formation moved slightly, and the shadow hit the middle of the 4 gods and exploded. The temporary 5-element formation was broken in a second. In the shadow, Xia Guixuan grabbed the golden god Rushao. Rushao, a palm gently pressed on him and pierced through. Rushao bleeds and retreats like a kite with a broken string. He can't even understand why the other party would choose him who has no intersection at all. Those few people all have grudges against you and are injured. Why don't you break the formation from them first and come to me first? Are you fucking sick? Gundam was very relieved in his arms. I didn't even guess what you were going to do. You have the essence of my 3-point chaos. Xia Guixuan didn't have the time to talk nonsense with him. Taeye's attack was like a shadow, and the violent aura was behind him. It made people's scalps numb before they even got close. That was the real half-step to the Supreme. Being hit was no joke. Xia Guixuan moved sideways in midair while advancing, slapped the pursuing Taeye sword with one palm, and gently grasped it with the other palm. The fire of Xiran, Jumang, and Gong, who were besieging from both sides, was extinguished, the wood was extinguished, and the water of Gong was stopped. Water, fire, and wood were mixed into a ball. Xia Guixuan grasped them with one hand and smashed them backwards. Taeye split the small chaos with one sword, but saw that Xia Guixuan had already rushed forward 1,000 miles, grabbed Rushao who was retreating, and kicked him backwards. Rushao? Taeye had no choice but to catch Rushao. Xia Guixuan flew backwards to the distance, and at the same time, he bowed. I said I was going to kill you, just to scare you. I'm a good person. Before he finished speaking, he had already stepped into the 2nd heaven. The sky that he had just split was squeezed together like plasticine, blocking Taeye's pursuit. Taeye was so angry that he didn't even care that this was his own plane. He punched open the gate of heaven and continued to chase after him. You destroyed it yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Xia Guixuan's voice was already in the 3rd heaven. Taeye turned his head and saw that the 2nd heaven was crooked and shattered. He didn't know what kind of character it was after being chopped by him. Are you a monkey? Taeye was furious. Why didn't I realize that you were so wild before? Xia Guixuan's laughter came from the 4th heaven, because I cultivate nothingness. Taeye is the beginning of existence. I am no longer Taeye. You can take it back yourself, screams rang out. The phantom monsters in the 3rd heaven tried to intercept Xia Guixuan, but he broke through all the way with his sword alone, and no one knew where he went. When Taeye chased after him, he only saw broken limbs and arms all over the ground. Nothingness, no trace. Gong, who had long given up chasing, stood silently on the spot, knowing that compared with the battle in the Taeyan plain, this man had made progress in just less than a year of travel. His bottom line seems endless, and no one knows where the limit of his growth is. Xiran and Jumang looked at each other. They both have a certain understanding of Xia Guixuan. They always feel that Xia Guixuan is not messing around without any rules. He has a purpose. For example, not killing them. It seems not difficult. But he just doesn't kill them. It means that he knows that they can't kill them. No matter how easy it is, it will take effort. It's better to save the energy when facing the counterattack at the moment of death. Because here, they can be reborn infinitely. So Xia Guixuan went straight to destroy the plane. He destroyed everywhere, just looking for the core. When he found it, they could kill him. This is not without traces, but under the premise of knowing what is in mind, he does whatever he wants to mess around. Tai, who follows behind, never knows where his next step is, when to stop to beat people, when to do damage, and it is difficult to even stop him. Xiran even thinks that Xia Guixuan has a more fundamental goal, but everyone can't see it for a while. Is this called between existence and nothingness? But no matter how he operated, it was too exaggerated for one person to fight against a thousand-edge fantasy realm alone. It was even more impossible to destroy the core of the realm. It would be difficult for him to deal with the third heaven alone. Dang, Xia Guixuan's raging sword light was actually blocked by someone. It seemed that there was a thunder shooting from the sword, but it was stopped by Xia Guixuan's magic power and disappeared without a trace. Xia Guixuan narrowed his eyes slightly, took a half step back, and looked at the figure in front of him. The thousand-edge fantasy monster seemed to no longer play the faceless game in front of him. What he saw at this time was their true appearance. Another familiar person, an enemy that Xia Guixuan had defeated with all his efforts, and his daughter was still with him. The king of Olympus. Zeus. He was also accompanied by the gods of the pantheon, almost all of whom died at the hands of Xia Guixuan and his subordinates in the War of the Gods, including Poseidon, who was called an idiot by Xia Guixuan. Also including Athena. The dead Zeus and the living Athena appeared here together. This was another strange problem in the Qianling fantasy world. The gods formed a strange formation and were ready for battle. Xia Guixuan did not try to uncover the truth like he did with Tai's here and before, but just stared at Athena. Athena had a blank expression on her face, and even hatred for him in her beautiful eyes. Xia Guixuan looked at her for a long time, and suddenly blinked his eyes, and said to the Gundam in his arms, "Athena seems more beautiful like this." Gundam rolled his eyes. Xia Guixuan said excitedly, "I always make a scene when I see her. Do you think I am breaking into the 12 zodiac signs?" Gundam said unhappily, "Be more confident. This is making trouble in the heavenly palace." The anger in the eyes of the Olympus gods grew stronger. This guy actually started chatting here. "And that Gundam, who are you two? We respect you as our ancestor, and you are like this?" Xia Guixuan smiled. "At least in my eyes, Olympus is not worthy of the heavenly palace. Look, Tai didn't even chase me, and even such a backup is unwilling to join forces with outsiders to deal with me, right?" Brain Flower sensed it, and Tai did stop at the second heaven and didn't come up again. It seems that even if the Thousand Edges illusionary monster is unified, there are certain factions. This is normal. Even Xia Guixuan's harem group has factions, let alone such a huge and mixed weird force. This is even more interesting. It is obviously very difficult for one person to fight against the 33 heavens alone. Tai alone is not easy to mess with. Once he is really entangled, it will be very troublesome. But since the other party is not tacit, if we don't turn this world upside down, wouldn't it be a shame for the kindness of their leader who has not appeared so far? Seeing Xia Guixuan's growing fighting spirit, Zeus finally said coldly, "Xia Guixuan, you are still so arrogant." Xia Guixuan smiled and said, "This word seems to be more appropriate for you." "Really?" Zeus sneered, "At least I have never done the stupid thing of facing a pantheon alone. You wouldn't have done it back then, but now you are blinded by pride." Xia Guixuan smiled, "But I have become much stronger." Zeus sneered and said nothing. "Are you trying to say that you have also become stronger, and have set up a battle array in advance?" As Xia Guixuan spoke, he put away the sword, raised his thumb to Zeus with his bare hand, and slowly turned it over. "But in my opinion, you are not even as good as you were back then." Chapter 552, going straight to the 9th level. The internationally accepted friendly gesture completely angered the Olympian pantheon. A bolt of lightning appeared in Zeus's hand. It was not thunder, but his weapon, a divine weapon transformed from thunder. Oh, its name was thunder. Of course, this thunder was not an ordinary thunder. In Chinese terms, it was an innate divine thunder that split everything. Nothing could stop it except his own Aegis shield. Even Xia Guixuan back then did not dare to take on this terrifying thunder. At this time, with the blessing of the gods, Zeus was confident that even the Supreme might not dare to take it. Boom! The divine thunder fell from the sky and struck straight down. The next second, Zeus' eyes widened. Xia Guixuan stood there, stretched out his hand easily, collected the thunder in his palm, and pinched it into a small snake. The so-called innate divine thunder that split everything seemed to be inferior to a small skill with 350 damage in his eyes. That's it, Xia Guixuan smiled sarcastically and flicked his finger. The thunder reflected back, like a dragon or a snake, and rushed straight to Zeus's face. With a hiss, Athena raised her shield to block Zeus. The thunder shot on her shield, making a strange sound of sizzling, and the electric current ran wildly, slowly dissipating. Tisk, the shield is not in her hand, but in yours. Xia Guixuan looked at the shield. The legendary shield that could turn people into stone had no effect at all. The eyes of Medusa on the shield were fixed on Xia Guixuan. Suddenly, she screamed and turned into stone. Xia Guixuan, go to hell! With a loud shout, the trident attacked from the side. Xia Guixuan grabbed it casually and stabbed it directly at Zeus, who had just come out from behind the shield. Idiot! The brothers were forced to fight back and retreated in embarrassment. Xia Guixuan had disappeared from the pincer attack range. Athena was alarmed and tried to dodge, but her waist was already tied and she was hugged tightly in Xia Guixuan's arms. Athena subconsciously thrust her elbow backwards, a blow that was powerful enough to shatter the stars, but it was like a small fist hitting his chest, and he didn't even groan in pain. The next moment, the slender hand holding the shield was also grasped by him, and she involuntarily followed him and turned around, just in time to crack and block all the attacks from other relatives around. Good shield, Xia Guixuan praised, and then lowered his head to smell her snow-white neck. It smells good. Athena was so angry that she struggled hard. Let me go. But how could she break free? Instead, he continued to block and parry the attacks from all directions with his shield. Ha ha ha, good shield, good shield. The gods were stunned and even their offensive weakened. What is this? Molesting their virgin goddess in a group fight? In front of the father, mother, brothers and sisters? However, Zeus' eyes flashed with a fierce look, and violent thunder gathered wildly above the two of them. That was a range that the shield could never block, and it seemed that even Athena would be struck to death. A mocking smile appeared on Xia Guixuan's lips. Athena felt that a huge force was used, and she could no longer hold her shield, which was taken away by Xia Guixuan. The next moment, the shield floated above her head, and suddenly became thousands of miles across, covering the sky. And she was picked up by Xia Guixuan and kissed hard on her lips. Boom! The thunder killed the sky and submerged the entire world. But under Xia Guixuan's magical power of transforming the shield within a few feet into a shield of tens of millions of miles, there were lightning and thunder above, and peace below. Athena's eyes widened, listening to the thunder above, looking at his face close in front of her, and the warm breath coming from his lips. She was stunned. She didn't touch the real Athena beside him, but took away the first kiss of this fake one among the crowd. Far away on Kanglong Star, Athena, who had just finished watching a movie and was visiting the Kanglong temple with Change Rabbit, suddenly covered her chest, with sweat on her forehead. What's wrong with me? Behind Xia Guixuan, a double-pronged fork silently led to his back. Athena, who was being kissed and didn't know what to do, suddenly struggled, and the woo-woo sound seemed to remind her to be careful. Xia Guixuan's eyes were even more smiling, and he returned his hand and punched down. With a clang, a man's figure appeared in the empty space, wearing an invisible helmet on his head, which had been cracked by Xia Guixuan's fist. The man quickly evacuated with blood from all 7 orifices. That's all Pluto is? Ha ha ha, Xia Guixuan laughed loudly. You have lost your own realm, your own laws, and you are not as good as me. You have secretly attacked countless laws of death and attacked me like the wind, but you even used sneak attacks. With this little trick, how can you call yourself Pluto? Hades flew back without saying a word. And you, Xia Guixuan shook his fingers in a circle, and finally pointed at Zeus, laughing. Why do I say you are not as good as you were back then? You said that I would not face the entire pantheon alone, but you would not be so cowardly as to use the entire pantheon to face one person back then. You are guilty, and you have lost your domineering and unifying the realm. You are now as shit as Zeus. Zeus roared angrily, and his body turned into a giant standing tall, stepping on the shield that was played with. Xia Guixuan's eyes were more and more ironic, and he suddenly snapped his fingers. The space above the shield strangely cracked into a huge gap, and a pair of giant hands stretched out to block Zeus's feet. Zeus was shocked. A giant slowly emerged from the crack, and the face was 60% similar to Zeus. Zeus' father, Kronos, the god of time and destruction. Poseidon, Hades and others all changed their expressions. Xia Guixuan, do you know that you released a devil? That's your father. Xia Guixuan's voice came slowly. While entangled with you, I will trace back time and search through space to see if he is in this abyss. At the end of time, you all have backups, and he should have more, right? Boom. Thunder in the sky ran wildly, time and space were out of order, and the chaotic thunder swept towards all the gods in the field, accompanied by Kronos' wild laughter. Go to hell, a bunch of bastards. For a moment, the gods didn't even care about Xia Guixuan. Athena stared at the incident in amazement. Before she could react, her red lips were kissed again. A dirty hand casually wiped her chest and then went away. Beauty, we will meet again. Ha 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 ha. The laughter faded away, and Xia Guixuan had entered the fourth heaven. Only the smoky Olympus pantheon was left, and a group of gods were beating up their father and grandfather. Athena covered her chest, her heart rising and falling with anger. Her beautiful eyes looked at the direction where Xia Guixuan disappeared with hatred, and she didn't know whether it was hatred or fear. Tai passed through the edge of the chaos like avoiding garbage, and chased after the fourth heaven with a muffled voice. He really admired Xia Guixuan in his heart. Xia Guixuan's current strength can really beat all the heavens. He turned the Qianling fantasy world upside down by himself. If the Roman, Nordic, Japanese and Korean pantheons did not rush forward, they would basically be humiliated in his hands. Tai didn't even want to make a move. He knew where the heaven that could really stop Xia Guixuan was. There are 9 heavens, and gods are divided into 9 positions. And people compose 9 songs to record it. Swoosh, Xia Guixuan suddenly stopped. The same death intention, the control of life and death, Hades had used the law on him countless times just now, and he felt nothing. But now this time, there is. It may not be because the person in front is stronger than Hades, but because we all have the same origin. Crack, there was a light sound, as if the years were broken in front, and life and death were confused here. A figure slowly emerged in front, sighing in a low voice, Your Majesty's intention of life and death is stronger than mine. Xia Guixuan looked at the person in a trance, and his arrogant and willful expression finally became completely solemn. You are here, where are they? Which one does Your Majesty want to see? The face of the person who came gradually became clear. He was wearing a tall hat and a wide belt, and he was elegant in middle age, majestic and indifferent. The longsword in his hand seemed to penetrate the eternal netherworld, cold and breathless. The Chinese god of death, people are used to calling it the King of Hell. Before the King of Hell, there was another title. Hao-Tu is one of them. When Hao-Tu's rank was upgraded, the title of the god in charge of life and death was Da Siming. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553 Kill Others and Me Too. C means leader. There is one person in the tent who issues orders to the 4 directions. Mouth is the image of issuing orders. To this day, Sizzy still means responsible. Yu was Sikon of Shun. Kong means worker. He was in charge of water conservancy and construction. Siki established the Xia dynasty and inherited the duties of the other Si. He did not dare to exceed the duties of his ancestors, so he reversed the word Si and wrote Hao. There was a king of Xia, named Xia Hao. It is 2 characters with Hao, which indicates direction. Ming originally meant command. Siming is of course not a command from Sizzy, but an extension of destiny, meaning destiny in life. Siming, as the name suggests, is in charge of your life and destiny. Death and destiny are the most revered, so it is called Da Siming. Marriage and reproduction are more down to earth, this is Xiao Siming. It can also be said that Xiao Siming is essentially the deputy of Da Siming, although the 2 do not have a direct leadership relationship. If we were to ask who is the strongest among the gods under Xia Guixuan, it would not be Xiao Siming, who was in charge of marriage and reproduction, but Da Siming, who was in charge of death. The 9 states are in chaos, and life and death are up to me. He has always been Xia Guixuan's right-hand man, and he is not dead, but his mirror image is here, just like Athena. Da Siming blocked the front, and Dong Huang Tai blocked the back. Just 2 people, but the pressure was much greater than the previous beating by so many people from all over the world. Tai's sword, which was previously cracked, didn't know when it would heal itself, and the previous battle was as if it had never happened. The pressure does not only come from the strength of Taiyi and Siming, but also depends on your heart. Naoho was in Xia Guixuan's arms, and he deeply felt that he was no longer as willful as before, because here, all of them were old friends. 1 or 2 would be fine, you can tell yourself that you are not him. What about 10 or 100? Is your sword as sharp as before? Xia Guixuan looked at the distance behind the Great Siming. The Great Siming brought some of the Wu Xianzhi subordinates, many of whom he was familiar with, but he didn't see the other most important ones, especially her. However, not seeing doesn't mean that they don't exist. Xia Guixuan slowly drew his sword. Just now, among the gods of Olympus, I deliberately waited for a while, but still didn't see a few familiar faces. Now I've waited for a while, and there are still only a few of you. Does it mean that not everyone has a projection, and only you are here? The Great Siming said. What if it is? If it is, I really have to start killing people. Xia Guixuan said calmly. I don't care whether Xiran Zeus has several projection mirror backups or any names or statements. But I don't want someone in another place to say that he is also the Great Siming. I will get rid of him. But how does your majesty know that he is not me? Xia Guixuan narrowed his eyes slightly and shook his head again. That's not important, it really doesn't matter. The declaration of defined by me has been made, and now all we have to do is to prove it. It is to prove that this is true, and it is also to prove that I have the strength to put down the arrogant words. The battle in front of him was the most direct proof, otherwise everything would be a joke. The Donghuang Taiyi sword behind him no longer had the dazzling light of Taiyi, which was just their most common magical power. The Taiyi at this moment was releasing the power that truly belonged to the generation of the Heavenly Emperor. Xia Guixuan was no longer in space. It was as if a strange feeling of different dimensions were intertwined. Time was disordered around him, space was hanging upside down, like a sense of dislocation and inception. The past was in front, the future was behind, and then they intertwined and swallowed, and the dimension collapsed. It was the one who controlled the 4 directions, the past and the present, and represented the will and destiny of the heavens, and fell into an unknown node. Taiyi, the original point. This word can actually be brain flower. Xia Guixuan was in this node that could make him fall and die at any time, but he inexplicably said in his heart, everything is you, and then it became Ahu's eternal god. Although this eternal god did nothing, he was still sticking his Gundam head out and curiously watching them fight. It was different from ordinary fights. There was no back and forth, only images. Xia Guixuan's long sword was stationed, and the tip of the sword was emitting long ripples, as if it was colliding and impacting at this strange node, melting everything and turning it into vast nothingness. The sword of nothingness. If the things controlled by the Emperor of Heaven are based on existence, there is time, space, heaven, earth, and people to rule everything, then turn this existence into nothingness. If the basis of rule does not exist, then what is the Emperor of Heaven? It's all bullshit. I don't want the throne, I will abandon it and leave. What about you? Shua. The ripples dissipated, and the sound disappeared. Silent, invisible. Only Xia Guixuan was left standing alone in the chaos, with his feet on the ground and his head on the sky. In the sky and on the ground, he was the only one left. Taiyi's forehead was slightly sweaty. At this moment, in the underground of the 9 Netherworld, the death energy gradually spread. Cut off the past, wipe out the future, the real name between heaven and earth dissipated, the 3 words Xia Guixuan gradually disappeared from people's memories, even Si Kang was gone. Between any dimensions, you no longer exist. This is death, not dragging people to the underworld. When there is no trace of existence, that is the underworld. Xia Guixuan closed his eyes. This is nothingness, not death, or the most extreme death is nothingness, that is fate. 2 voices echoed in his ears. The past you are dead, the future you do not exist, the present you is neither alive nor dead, that is fate. If it is Zeus, I will ask him, are you worthy? Xia Guixuan said lightly, I will be more polite to you. He slowly opened his eyes. Grandson of you, son of Qi, the majestic mountains and rivers, gave me a name. You have not even erased the name of Emperor Jun, and you actually want me to think that there is no name for me between heaven and earth. Boom. The 9 tripods flew out and circled around him, like the gathering of galaxies, forming a dragon. The dragon head roared up to the sky, reopening the blue sky. The dragon claws stamped on the ground, breaking the netherworld. Taiyi, the ruler of the sky, and Siming, the ruler of the earth, groaned at the same time and fell back. A cold light burst out from the dragon. And the junte was unsheathed, heading straight for the Great Siming. The sword of annihilation. The Great Siming was flying back, his expression was neither sad nor happy, and suddenly he stretched out his hand and a subordinate behind him turned in front of him. Xia Guixuan's pupils shrank slightly. That was himself. A person without a phase, Xia Guixuan, who had been practicing bravely. At this moment, he was looking at himself blankly, with a look of determination and unwillingness to admit defeat. The Junte sword in his hand had not been sacrificed many times and was still very low-end, but that was really himself. He had replicated everything in the past, hesitated to move forward, and worked hard to make progress, just to climb to the highest peak of practice. Brainflower looked up at Xia Guixuan with some worry. At this moment, being in the special magical power created by Tai and the Great Siming was very subtle. If I cut off my past self with a sword, wouldn't it be exactly what the great god of destiny said? The past you is dead, the future you does not exist, erasing my best past, erasing the past that laid the foundation for my current strength, and falling into the trajectory that was arranged? If I don't kill him, then all the efforts I just made will seem to be in vain, the blue sky will not be broken, and the underworld will return to rest. This is a contradictory blow, the biggest test for Xia Guixuan. What will he choose? In a flash, there was a clang sound, the sword of Junte versus the sword of Junte. The opponent's sword shattered inch by inch, and Xia Guixuan's sword had already pierced his throat. The whole audience was silent. The mirror image looked at itself in front of it in disbelief. Xia Guixuan's expression was still as cold as ice. Since I came out of retreat, virtual reality, Xia Ojiu, Longyao, Ahua, everything I have seen and heard, the observations and enlightenment accumulated over the years, all for this sword today, the 9 cauldrons fell with a bang, and they were firmly suppressed on the mirror image. They used up all the big moves that they didn't even use on Wuxian, and suppressed the mirror image to ashes. This was the first person Xia Guixuan killed in the Qianling fantasy world. The first one was himself. He didn't even let the other party say a word. The 9 cauldrons surrounded him quietly, and Xia Guixuan in the center was like a demon god. The weight of the cauldron is up to me. Do you also want to decide my fate? Chapter 554, the only person who could stop him spoke, and Tai and Asiming spat out dark brown blood at the same time. The blood washed away the special magical space, and the intersection of fate fell apart and returned to the reality again. It seemed to symbolize that Xia Guixuan was stepping on his own destiny, and the Emperor of Heaven and Underworld, who controlled the sky and the earth and controlled your life, was seriously injured and retreated. To outsiders, it seemed as if he had caused 2 powerful men to be seriously injured with just a word. The heroes were moved, and the whole world was shocked. People looked at Xia Guixuan with something more in their eyes. They were not just looking at an invading enemy, but began to have some complicated respect. Because those who understand know that under the magical powers of Tai and Asiming, the meaning of beheading a mirror is not as simple as just killing a fake. Who can't do it? What's worth praising? However, it's not like that. Just like the illusion set up for Xia Guixuan in Longyao when Ahua was still an enemy, it is said to be an illusion, but it can actually be reflected in the real world. If it is not handled properly, the real world will also disappear with the illusion. The ending of Ahua's scene was the same as a joke. It was Ahua's own stupidity, not her lack of skills. It's the same here. In a sense, Xia Guixuan's sword can really be regarded as cutting off his past. The most important part is the past. Without that part of the past, Xia Guixuan would never have grown into the supreme ruler of a world. If he had any hesitation about the idea of my cognition is the only one and defined by me when he drew this sword, he might have killed this mirror image and made his past disappear. Would he still be the invincible Xia Guixuan now? No. This is to cut off the cause and effect. Even if the will is firm, if the strength is not enough to resist the dissipation of the past, it may really hurt the self and be seriously damaged. However, the facts have proved that his will is superior to everything, and his strength is superior to all living things. The dissipation of the past had no effect on him. Instead, the 2 enemies who set up the magic power suffered a strong backlash, their magic power collapsed, and they fell back with blood spurting out. The retreating Da Siming was horrified to find that Xia Guixuan had appeared behind him at some point. The sword of Junte fell from top to bottom, as if it fell casually. I said, I'm going to start killing people. If you want to kill others, kill me first. The killing ring has begun. The Great Siming wanted to dodge, but found that the invisible space bound him completely, and he could only follow the predetermined trajectory. He wanted to resist, but found that the laws of life and death he mobilized were completely out of his control, because his emperor had deprived him of his control. Even in this world, your duties are also under my orders. Shui, a taking peak strongman was split into two halves by the seemingly slow sword without any resistance. Black blood spurted out, and Xia Guixuan, who was standing in the blood, looked more like a god or a demon. He had no expression, and his eyes were fixed on the body that was split into two halves. The structure of the corpse was exactly the same as that of a human, with no difference in bones, internal organs, blood vessels and meridians, except that the blood was black. The body that was split into two halves began to disappear gradually, as if it had merged into the earth, and no one knew where it was going. If nothing unexpected happened, he could still be resurrected infinitely. His previous judgment was correct. He must find the core of this world, otherwise there is no point in killing. Just like in a game, you can take turns with a boss 10,000 times, and there will never be an end. But his past self might not survive. Wu Xiang, who was killed by him with all his strength, can be proud in the afterlife. Xia Guixuan raised his head and looked at Tai, who was flying away. Tai had already jumped out of this world, but he couldn't help but feel cold when he was locked by Xia Guixuan's mind. Xia Guixuan, you really don't kill others, but only kill your own people, huh? Xia Guixuan was amused by the three words our own people and responded seriously, yes. He paused and said slowly, you can leave, I will kill these, my own people. Shui, the sword light surged. The sword light was cold, and the 9 provinces were annihilated. The thousands of subordinates here, countless familiar faces, were killed by this sword, and the mountains and rivers were stained with blood. The sword light rushed into the sky again, turning into millions of cold rays, like rain, all over the world. This is to plow this world clean, no matter whether you will be resurrected or not. The meaning is cold and clear, in front of me, you are not allowed to face them. At this moment, another sword beam passed through. Billions of sword rains seemed to be attracted, deviated one after another, and fell to an unknown distance. It seemed that even the swords became gentle. Xia Guixuan's body stiffened slightly, and his eyes looked at the source of the sword beam. There were several women standing there. One of them was wearing a plain dress and holding her long sword upside down. Her eyes were like autumn water, looking at him with anger and resentment, as if there were thousands of fine threads entangled in your heart. Xia Guixuan pursed his lips. Naoho even thought that he was going to run away again. Fortunately, he didn't. His feet were like roots, motionless. Taking, she opened her cherry lips and called in a low voice, are you going to kill me too? Xia Guixuan's long sword slowly dropped, pointing obliquely to the ground, and his eyes fell with the tip of the sword, no longer looking at her. You didn't show up just now, don't you want to join in the siege of me, or for some other reason? Naoho complained in his heart that men lied to themselves like this. The person who came was of course Xiao Siming. Naoho didn't know why she didn't show up just now. If she did, would Xia Guixuan still be able to handle it with ease? Naoho would rather think that the entire system of Kainling Fantasy World had reacted. Making trouble and overturning are two different things. Do you really think that one person can overturn Kainling Fantasy World? Before this, Xia Guixuan was actually confused. No one would have thought that this guy would actually break into the 9th heaven alone and mess up the 3-world structure of Kainling Fantasy World. The leader of the other party might have something else that he didn't deal with in time, causing each god system to be in a mess and fighting each other, and it turned into a template for breaking into the palace. If the leader of the other party was really in an emergency, Xia Guixuan would break in like this, and the entire Kainling Fantasy World would really collapse. A supreme Xia Guixuan, who suddenly attacked and made trouble, could cause such terrible damage. But after so much trouble, it would be impossible if the other party hadn't made a comprehensive arrangement. At this time, it is very likely that the net of the heavens, all kinds of the strongest formations are arranged, and only Xiao Siming is used to delay Xia Guixuan. Xia Guixuan could chop her up directly, and maybe he could have a head start. Once he gets entangled with her tenderly for a moment, he will inevitably be trapped. Once the other party's leader shows up, he may not be able to escape. Even Naoho can see this. Can Xia Guixuan see it? But he seemed to be deceiving himself, and whispered, you didn't want to face me before, but you couldn't bear to see me slaughtering your compatriots, so you came out, right, Naoho? It seems that this is also possible, but why is your first reaction when you are in enemy territory? The dog liquor is really awesome. Xiao Siming sighed lightly, Taking, can you go back? Xia Guixuan said. Which one to go back? Do you want to take me back, or do you want me to go back to Kanglong Star? Xiao Siming pursed his lips and whispered, you, still hate me? Xia Guixuan raised his voice, can't I hate you? Naoho almost vomited out the overnight melon. But Xiao Siming said, you, that can be regarded as betraying the East Emperor realm. I have to give an explanation to them. Yes, Xia Guixuan sighed. Sister saved my life and taught me Taoism. Xia Guixuan's current situation is all due to sister, so I will give it back to sister, Xiao Siming whispered. In fact, His Majesty knew that I took you in against the rules, but he didn't say anything. Really? Xia Guixuan turned his head to look at Taii, who was stationed outside the sky, and smiled. Yes, I still have to thank His Majesty. Taii bowed his hands and said nothing. Xia Guixuan slowly walked towards Xiao Siming and whispered, it's been so long, what hatred is there to talk about? Sister, today, are you still willing to be my sister? Xiao Siming's eyes flashed with joy. Taking, do you really think so? In the middle of the question and answer, Xia Guixuan had already arrived in front of her and opened his hands. If all the grudges are forgiven, how about a hug? Xiao Siming smiled with relief and gently hugged Xia Guixuan. The next moment, with a click, her neck was broken. Her beautiful face was still filled with surprise and disbelief. The two expressions mixed together, shocking everyone in heaven and on earth. At the same time, Naoho heard Xia Guixuan's soul transmission. Let's go. I see where the 33 heavens are. Boom. Naoho's soul broke through the sky, and Xia Guixuan disappeared in an instant. The net that had just been set up outside was once again in chaos. Chapter 555. The Lord of the Fantasy World. Does this mean just turn around and leave? In the literal sense. The realms were changing around him, dimensions were shuttling around him. Xia Guixuan was heading straight for the heaven beyond heaven, but Naoho was too excited to control himself, and was talking incoherently. Why could you do that? That is a mirror image of Xiao Siming's memories and emotions. Her surprise and relief towards you is definitely not fake, and it's not the illusion I gave you at that time. Right, yeah, I can understand you punching the illusion in the face, but why could you do that to such a real person? Naoho said excitedly. I didn't expect you to be so quick and decisive, Pa. It makes me feel so good. Giga, it feels so good, right? If you call me Giga again, I will slap you too. Naoho, Xia Guixuan, seriously, why can you do that? Naoho didn't bother with this word with him. The excitement and fun covered everything. You even sympathized with Athena before. Don't tell me you want to beat her up because of the reason in the illusion. Xia Guixuan said calmly. No, did that mean he killed his wife to prove his truth? Naoho said excitedly. You have realized it, Gui, Zhuan. Xia Guixuan said calmly. Everything she said was true. Her feelings were real too, and she really had deep feelings for me. When I asked her if she was still willing to be my sister, her relief was not fake. But unfortunately, it was because of this that I was reminded that this was fake. This was fake, Naoho, Xia Guixuan said slowly, because a real sister doesn't want to be my sister at all. Naoho shut up. In the memories and emotions that she shared with her sister, there was a blank that was artificially separated. A smile gradually appeared on Xia Guixuan's lips. This was done on purpose by my sister. She didn't let anyone know where her real emotional entanglement with me was. What was revealed on the outside was still brother and sister. She even found a reason that I was a traitor to the world for hurting me. All of this was reflected in the mirror, and her words sounded full of holes and out of place to me, but she herself didn't know it. Naoho finally understood. Xiao Siming has always known that there is a problem with the world. This separation is self-protection. She doesn't let people know that her relationship with you is so outrageous. I thought it was just a relationship where brother and sister had a falling out and got hurt. Yes. Not only to protect herself, she is also investigating in secret. Even the magic mirror was her backup plan, and now it has been used by us to cross the border. I have always been blessed by her. She is so good, Naoho. She is really a dog licker, Xia Guixuan said, with some ferocity in his voice. I don't want anyone to fool me with her face again. If it happens again next time, it won't be as simple as breaking my neck. Naoho shrank as high as his neck. It was Ahua who first used her face to provoke Xia Guixuan. I hope her disguise works and her tricks are not discovered. Xia Guixuan did not intend to trouble Ahua, and his voice was a little anxious. I want to see her as soon as possible. Kindling Fantasy World is just garbage. The real place is not here. Don't worry, Naoho hurriedly comforted. You have done a great job, keep your mind steady, and this kindling fantasy world will be picked clean by you sooner or later. Step, as he spoke. Xia Guixuan had passed through the 9 heavens and stepped into a higher realm. This is the 33 heavens, and it is also the heaven beyond heaven. If there is a leader in the kindling fantasy world, it must be here. Naoho stopped talking and looked forward with Xia Guixuan. There is nothing in this world, only a huge sun, scorching everything. It is a bit like the opposite of changes Taiyin plane, but Xia Guixuan knows that this is not the corresponding Taiyin plane. Because the other party itself is the sun. This sun does not mean the star in the hearts of earthlings, but a general term. It is the sun, the opposite of the moon, in the yin and yang. It is the brightest, hottest, brightest, supreme, and the sun that shines on everything. Xia Guixuan felt many familiar shadows in it. For example, some faces that he had not seen before among the gods of Olympus. The auras of Helios and Apollo are here, so he did not see them just now. There are also Mithra and so on. Just like when he felt the change had gathered many divinities of the moon goddess, the sun in front of him was also fused. The difference is that change only had a collection of divinities, which had nothing to do with the soul and the body, but the one in front of him seemed to have everything blended into it, becoming a sun that far surpassed all light and heat. Such a fusion, of course, has a core, and there must be a cause that serves as a medium or a fuse. Xia Guixuan is more familiar with this core. Dijun. And there are 2 Dijun. One Dijun of the kindling fantasy world, and one, the real Dijun who was injured and not healed. They are merging. And at the last moment Xia Guixuan observed, Dijun's fusion happened to be completed. Xia Guixuan's disruption didn't have time to destroy his fusion, and he didn't have time to lay a net to block Xia Guixuan. So it was king versus king. The sun transformed into a human form, and its majestic eyes looked towards Xia Guixuan's direction, and the surroundings turned into ashes silently. Xia Guixuan stood safely in the ashes and said lightly, "The ashes are too big, collect them." Dijun smiled, "I just succeeded, and I can't control it well for a while, sorry." As he spoke, the divine light faded, and the space that was previously scorched by the scorching sun gradually calmed down, turning into 2 simple people standing face to face. There was even a breeze blowing, causing the sleeves of both parties to rustle lightly, and dust flew freely between the 2 people. When the 2 looked at each other, it seemed to penetrate the vicissitudes of thousands of years, the ups and downs of grievances. "It's really unexpected," Xia Guixuan spoke first. "When I saw Tai coming to stop me, I subconsciously ruled out the judgment that you were the king of the fantasy world, but I didn't expect that it was really you. Tai, Da Siming, would actually obey you. This is normal. No matter how much you enjoy the original memories and even the instruments, you still have to follow the settings," Dijun answered very straightforwardly. Xia Guixuan nodded, setting, "I think you probably know it, so you might as well say it clearly." "Why hide it?" Dijun said lightly. "Tai fell at my hands back then, so you rose to take his place. It's normal for him to be inferior to me here," Xia Guixuan said. "Why did you come here and merge?" Dijun smiled. "After the battle with Zelt, I knew of their existence and naturally tried to get in touch with them. The original intention was to deal with you, but you found out that you are eating the melon yourself," Xia Guixuan said sarcastically. "How do you feel when you see your backup?" "Backup?" Dijun looked up and thought for a while. "This description is quite right. It seems that you know no less than me who has integrated the knowledge of this world." He paused, and suddenly laughed. "If we follow the explanation of the backup, this is originally a substitute when the original file is damaged. So it seems that my fusion is like file recovery, which is an acquiesced behavior. I thought I found a good way. It seems that it is still within observation." Xia Guixuan narrowed his eyes. "But no matter what, you may think I have no foresight. My cultivation has been fully restored and I have entered the supreme level. The so-called backdoor of the backup cannot limit me at all. This world is in my hands, and I am the master of this world." Dijun smiled. "I have my own ideas on how to argue with them in the future. For now, it would be great to stand at the same starting point with you and settle this grudge." Brainflower poked his head out. "I thought you said so much because you wanted to cooperate with him, but you come to me to settle this grudge." Xia Guixuan pressed it back and said lightly, "There is no 2 suns in the sky. Besides, it is impossible for me to cooperate with kindling fantasy world. There are too many troubles here. A garbage dump must have the awareness of a garbage dump, and complete extinction is its due destination." "You are still so conceited," Dijun laughed. You have gone deep into this place alone, and I have already merged. Your chance of going back alive is very slim, and you still want us to completely perish. Ha, ha ha ha, Xia Guixuan said calmly. Fighting alone, are you sure you can keep me? Di Jun was very honest. No, but unfortunately this is not a one-on-one fight. This ninefold world, thousands of powerful people, are at my disposal. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Xia Guixuan. Unfortunately, I have some too, as if they were telepathically connected. At the same time Xia Guixuan's words fell, Xiao Jiu issued an order in the battleship. All troops march forward. Target, Fantasy Galaxy. Chapter 556. 100,000 flags going to the ninth heaven. Xiao Jiu has been watching his every move, and he knows all his thoughts. It's not a mess. His purpose has always been very clear. Not even a bit of extra energy and extra time was wasted. When he entered the fantasy world, and the leader of the other party did not stop him in the first time, Xia Guixuan knew that the other party must have delayed for some reason. And the biggest possibility of delay is that he was deceived by the scene of the tyrant playing with the fox he created before. The other party thought that he would not start a war at this time, so he went to do other things first. As a result, he broke in at this time, and the other party happened to be unable to split himself at a critical period. It would be very cool if he could quickly cause some damage. So Xia Guixuan angrily chopped the sky. It was not only to break the unity of the realm, so that he could shuttle quickly, but also to destroy the strong attacks such as the great formation of heaven and earth, and to facilitate Xiao Jiu and others to enter later. Before, he didn't kill people but just broke through the formation because he knew that he could be resurrected. Killing people was a waste of time. He had to mess with the Lord of the Fantasy world as quickly as possible. And when he involved the Lord of the Fantasy realm, the other party would not have the energy to revive. If he could destroy the core of the realm, then the death of others could be real death. So when he saw Di Jun, they began to intervene, and the real war started. Why did he spend time slaughtering acquaintances in the Eastern Emperor realm? Because he was determined, had a clear understanding, was the only one in the 10,000 realms, and others did not have this realm. What would happen if she, Xiao Jiu and Wu Yuling Mozu, saw Xia Guixuan's mirror image? Would the descendants of the gods who were born with his heavenly way, such as Long Yu Zhaoyi, be restricted when they saw the various gods with the same origin as him? Xia Guixuan did not want to gamble on that kind of result, so he had to spend time slaughtering, especially Xiao Siming, who he and everyone knew was very important. These two mirror images must be killed without a doubt, otherwise the consequences would be unpredictable. He had been waiting for Xiao Siming to appear since he saw Da Siming. He did not want to see him, but wanted to kill him from the beginning. There is no cruelty, no sympathy. This is war. The meaning of each action is extremely clear. Naoho will definitely not understand it. He will only think that he finally lost his way for once. He has 3 points of my essence. The final result did not achieve the goal of destroying Di Jun's fusion in advance, but it was not bad. At least they were against each other, and I was not trapped in the siege. The Qianling fantasy world was also messed up, and the home advantage was almost gone. Then it was king against king, general against general, and strength would speak in the end. The dark warships covered the Milky Way and swept in, just like the huge waves in the river, and the waves crashed against the shore. The Kanglong Daksha fleet, named Galaxy Fleet, entered the galaxy for the first time. It's not going home, it's war. The fantasy galaxy is also divided into many star systems, with many lives and colonies from the solar system. Their warships also swept across the heavens and destroyed many planes. This is the foundation that supports the entire Qianling fantasy world 33 Heavens Kingdom, where billions of Qianling fantasy monsters live. According to the logic of reality, the kingdom of God is closely related to all living things. Once the support of all living things is destroyed, the kingdom of God is just a rootless duckweed. Many gods will have their abilities reduced. I just don't know if the logic of Qianling fantasy world is the same. No matter what their logic is, there is an embarrassing phenomenon that this is the location of the blue dragon heart fire of Qianling fantasy world, that is, the heart of the inner world, and there are not many defense systems. Everyone's defense system is mainly external rather than internal, and even half of the main fleet is not here. They are not prepared for war at all. Who knows that the Galaxy Fleet will suddenly appear in their core area? Faced with a Galaxy Fleet that has been secretly prepared for a long time and has come out in full force, the fantasy galaxy is in tragedy. Boom. A garrison planet that is obviously equipped with an interstellar nuclear fusion missile base was the first target of Xia Guixuan. The Star Destroyer came from thousands of miles away, and the entire planet was instantly blown to ashes. She has been observing for a long time, and the target is very clear. Cruisers scattered everywhere, and various explosions and fireworks flashed through the galaxy. That was almost all the signal satellites in the star field, which were destroyed cleanly. It was not until this time that the garrison fleet of the fantasy galaxy began to react and deployed. Xia Guixuan stood in the AR image, as if he was standing in the void of the galaxy, facing the dark fleet in front of him, and smiled slightly. Wu Yan Wu responded. The warships of Qianling Fantasy Realm seem to be a little better than ours. Yan Wu smiled, not much different. If it were back then, our artillery fire might not be able to break through the defense network. Their warships distributed in other star fields are on the way. Just talking about this garrison fleet that hastily responded to the battle, Xia Guixuan silently estimated and smiled brightly. Do you have the confidence to defeat this garrison fleet within an hour? Yan Wu smiled. It seems that I should ask you if you have the confidence. Why are you asking me? Do you want me to usurp the throne? Xia Guixuan said, because the key factor in whether you can defeat the opponent's fleet within an hour is not to look at my fleet command, but to whether you can block the interference from the gods in heaven. She paused, sneered, as long as no one interferes, it will only take half an hour to deal with this fleet. Yan Wu looked up at the sky. He has turned these 33 days upside down. What we have to do is no longer to stop him, it's to conquer. Ling Moxu's cold voice came from the side, and the next moment the person disappeared. A crack opened up in the void at some point, and there seemed to be a faint light, and a god was about to descend. The sword light burst out and broke into the void. The opponent blocked the sword light, and seemed to have underestimated the power of Ling Moxu's sword. He retreated back to the crack with awe. But how could he retreat? A Pegasus came from the sky, stepped over the limit of space, and before the opponent could react, the spear pierced into the crack in the void. Fox King Yin Xiaoru went to war for the first time, and followed Shang Xiaoi with Long Gao. Behind them were shadowy figures, and the army of the descendants of gods, which had always claimed to be unassembled, was coming all over the sky. Do you have many monks in the Qianling fantasy realm? We have a lot of monks too. Change Yutu and Athena followed silently by their side. The trio who were having a great time shopping didn't even know how they started fighting until now. Everyone had just arrived at Kanglong Star, and many sisters didn't have time to get to know each other, and their butts weren't even warm. As a result, when he turned around, he saw a grand scene that looked like a decisive battle, with hundreds of thousands of flags spread all over the galaxy, and a blue dragon raised its head and ascended to the sky. Did your previous incompetent behavior paralyze me? Di Jun finally asked Xia Guixuan. Yes. Of course I didn't know it was you. Since it was you, I'm very surprised, Xia Guixuan sighed. How could even you believe that I would be foolish and ruthless before facing the enemy? I wanted to deceive a fool, but I didn't expect that the fool was you. Di Jun was silent for a while, and also sighed. First of all, we didn't know that you knew so much about Athena, or simply, the backup of Qianling Fantasy World. You know, I just found out about it not long ago. Xia Guixuan nodded. It's understandable, also because the unjust and tyrannical monarch was what you used to be. Di Jun said, the current you has completely changed from the one we know. If you say that you have transformed back to the virtue of the unjust and tyrannical monarch who played with women, it is not beyond our understanding. Do you want us to understand that a seeker who has hesitated all his life, a king who rules the three realms, and a supreme being who has seen the long river of time, are really in love? I understand your feelings, Xia Guixuan replied sadly, and then blinked his eyes. So, you ignore love, right? Di Jun smiled. Isn't it nonsense? Oh, okay, Xia Guixuan smiled and said, since you don't care about feelings, how about letting me play with Xi? Di Jun's expression, which had always been very graceful, finally flashed a look of rage. The sun was blazing, and the wind and clouds were suffocating. The friendship of old friends ended here, and the supreme war was about to break out. P.S. I'm sorry, there's only one update today. The old leader of the previous unit came to see me and wanted to treat me to some wine. Chapter 557 Wang Shu vs Xi. Since developing change, Xia Guixuan felt that it was a good idea to use this angle to provoke the opponent's anger. It doesn't matter whether the other party is affectionate or not, or whether he cares about the secular view of hats. As long as he is a high and mighty emperor, the feeling of having his own things played with by others is often unbearable. Whether it is women, treasures, land, servants, or even the power of command with a casual word, he will not be willing to let others control them. If he can even take this lightly, he is not worthy of being an emperor. What's more, that is Dijun. Compared with Zeus, they are all emperors who have the final say in a pantheon, but in terms of status, Zeus has his father, grandfather, Gaia, and even Ahura above him, and their status is not lower than his, or even crushes him. And Dijun is Dijun, the founder of a pantheon, who is truly supreme and in control of the world. It is said that he is the son of Pangu, but in fact, the systems are different. It is nothing more than a misunderstanding by later generations. In his eyes, Pangu really has nothing to do. Note, Dijun is a Dongai god according to research, and the research has been published on the official account. There may be many other opinions, such as the version that he is a brother of Taiji, but the setting of this book is based on the research of classmate Xiaoji. How could he tolerate such humiliating words? Even talking is not allowed. What's more, the person who said it was Xia Guixuan. Think about what change is like now. Think about how he played Athena in front of the Olympian gods just now. This guy is not just talking nonsense, but a bastard who will really put it into practice. Just thinking about it can make people crack. You want Zai? Then give you Zai. As the voice sounded, a fiery red flaming sword slashed towards Xia Guixuan's forehead. The sword is called Zai, the sword of the sun. Being able to name his own sword after his wife at least shows that Dijun still attaches some importance to his wife. Dang, a dark blue long sword blocked the Zai sword, and the Taiyan breath on the sword was magnificent and unmatched, just offsetting the stalemate with the power of the sun. Xia Guixuan smiled and said, "The sword is named Wangshu. Brother Jun, please appreciate it." Emperor Jun didn't even know when Xia Guixuan had a Wangshu sword. Wangshu means the moon driver, that is, the god who drives the moon god. It is also used to refer to the moon, but it is not the same as change. The meaning seems to be closer to rabbits. Of course, rabbits don't pull carts. The reason for different opinions is that the systems are different. Xia Guixuan didn't name this sword after change, because swords are used to cut people, and wives are used to love. Maybe this is the difference between him and Emperor Jun. Of course, Brainflower thinks that Xia Guixuan may have gone through the old game library again. This sword was of course made in the Taiyan plane, and it was made by gathering the essence of the Taiyang. It was originally for change, because Xia Guixuan wanted his belt back. Then he couldn't let change down and rob her of her treasured magic weapon, so of course he had to change it. Unfortunately, he could cast it, but he couldn't weave it. He couldn't change a ribbon for her, so he had to forge a sword. Ahua arrived at the Kanglong Star region ahead of time, so the sword was not completely forged and was not given to Henge. But at this moment, it was too suitable to be used to fight against the Zai sword. Xia Guixuan himself had the power of the sun, but compared with Dijun who specialized in this, it was definitely not as good. It just so happened that the Taiyan plane evolved by Ahua was of equal rank and even better, and the yin and yang confrontation was just right. But what was a little bit annoying was that it seemed that Dijun was the yang and Xia Guixuan was the yin. Ahua was very happy to think of this, and stretched out the Gundam head again to see Xia Guixuan's expression and laugh at it. As a result, the head disappeared as soon as it stretched out. The Gundam material could not exist in this confrontation at all. In the blink of an eye, it was reduced to ashes and not even a steel wire was left. A single eye blinked, and while no one was paying attention to it, it carefully reversed time, restored the Gundam head, and quickly hid in Xia Guixuan's arms and squatted motionless. Xia Guixuan and Dijun really didn't have time to care about it. God knows what it was doing there alone. If we talk about the origin of the universe, from nothing to something, and then to the process of evolving all things, which step comes first? Of course, it is from 1 to 2. This is the two principles. The Chinese philosophy is based on this. The most extreme yang and the most extreme yin, the confrontation between the two can create the origin of the universe. It can also be destruction. Under this collision, all other means have lost their meaning, only the purest one, which side is stronger. At this time, the outer world of the sky has completely turned into a two-color space. One side is faint ice blue, the other side is hot red, one side is calm, and the other side is boiling. At the center of the two-color collision, the two sides held swords and crossed each other, and their expressions were very solemn. Xia Guixuan didn't expect that Dijun's body, which had just been fused and didn't know how many troubles he had not seen, could be so strong, and truly reach the extreme of yang that he had never seen in his life. Absolute supreme meaning, no suspense. If the supreme can be achieved through this fusion, is there something wrong? Emperor Jin had not expected Xia Guixuan's cultivation to be so strong. They had some idea about Xia Guixuan's battle with Gaia, but they also knew that Xia Guixuan had used everything he could, including the environment, formations, and even Xiang's amplification, to defeat Gaia. In theory, he was not being modest when he claimed that he had not reached the supreme level. He was indeed just a little short of it, at least not reaching Gaia's level. But what about this time? He had nothing to rely on. In fact, this was Emperor Jun's home court, and Xia Guixuan was alone in the deep, and he had to use whatever he wanted. In such a passive situation, Xia Guixuan still played a full supreme combat power, and he was not inferior to him in yin and yang. Was it because of this sword? The two of them analyzed whether the other had a weakness that could be broken, and the scene of yin and yang was divided into two colors as the two continued to increase their strength. The entire 33 days became half blue and half red. Then it spread to the entire star field, and the Milky Way was divided into two. Finally, it spread throughout the universe, spreading like the original Big Bang. The creatures on both sides of the battle were stunned. The trembling and touching feeling from the heart, as if seeing the end of the avenue, can really make any cultivator lose their mind and forget everything they are in. These two people can really destroy the universe. But specifically on people, they did not feel the pressure of the might attacking them. The two supreme beings were compressing their power and not causing any overflow, not only because both sides did not want to hurt their own people by mistake, but also because any overflow could cause them to suffer. What people can feel is only the image of red and blue, which is all over the world. In silence, Xia Guixuan said in the battleship, "What are they in a daze?" The soldier next to him said, "I don't know, maybe because it's very beautiful?" The subordinates also have some feelings in their hearts, but I can't explain it clearly. "Oh," Xia Guixuan said, "is there such a good thing?" Subordinates, the Thousand Edges illusionary monsters are all cultivators, and they will feel the end of this avenue. The human warships are all playing with the genetic evolution sequence. I don't know what they are comprehending. The impact on humans is probably just the initial shock of seeing such a spectacular scene. After the shock, it's over. Xia Guixuan said, "This must be a confrontation between top gods, and in the battle, the weight that breaks the balance is our victory or defeat. This group of dazed idiots are the target that has been delivered to the door." The whole army advances 1 light year. Fire, the gunfire of various warships finally lit up in red and blue, and the fleet on the opposite side burst into silent fireworks in the void of the universe. It was not until the fleet formation was bombed to pieces that the commander of the other side woke up from a dream. The humans of Kanglong Star actually attacked at this time. It's simply unethical. The galaxy fleet had already surrounded it from top to bottom, and the Kanglong on the flagship roared, as if mocking. In the outer sky, the red color retreated a little bit imperceptibly, and the blue color gained the upper hand. All the monks reacted. The supreme battle that seemed out of reach, the peak showdown where any spilled energy could destroy everything. However, it turned out that the weight of victory or defeat might really be decided by them. Chapter 558, The Fox King vs. Tai fleet began to fight, and billions of descendants of gods also landed on various planets and carried out landing battles. In the heaven, Xiao looked up at the sky with an anxious look. "I want to amplify my father, how do I get there?" The enemy on the opposite side heard this. Those who don't know think it's a very normal sentence. He is a loyal subordinate who makes people respect him. Unfortunately, the enemy on the opposite side knows the inside story. For example, when Jumang was still blood erosion, he was almost killed by Xia Guixuan's horse, and his injuries have not recovered to this day. So he knows very well that this sentence can be translated into, "I want to be ridden by my man, how do I get there?" It's so touching that even the atmosphere of war can be turned into nonsensical AV comedy. Long Gaia was also very distracted after hearing this, but he couldn't complain about Xiaoai. At least Xiaoai and his apprentice haven't played yet, but his family is wagging their tails. She had to say something serious. "We can't get close to them in the current war situation. If we force ourselves to go, we might become a burden. Don't worry about it, otherwise it will cause chaos. Doing our own thing is the biggest help." A group of women turned to look at her. Now they all regarded her as a military advisor. Then how can we help? We can't go, and these phantom monsters dare not go either. This is just the battlefield between us and them. Long Yao pointed to the red and blue colors that were slightly shifting. Father God is in the upper hand. The reason for the upper hand is not as simple as Gongsun Jiu sank a few warships, but because her war means that the world line is converging. Even the enemies pricked up their ears and listened secretly. Except for a few special characters like Tai Zeus, most people really didn't understand the reason. Their battle is a force on par with the universe, and the only thing that can affect the balance of their battle is the universe itself. Long Yu said, originally, this world belonged to the king of the fantasy realm, but before that, the Father God slashed through the 9 heavens with a sword, and the unity of the realm was destroyed. The other party was entangled by the Father God before he had time to reorganize. He couldn't call on the power of the universe at this time. Even if he could, it was this kind of shattered power that could hardly affect their battle situation. Ling Moxa understood, so we need to fight for the ownership of this world, or at least we can't let the other party reorganize the complete world power. That's about it. Conquer every layer of the sky and refine them into ours. Long Yu said. Gongsun Jiu is already taking the first step. She is seizing the Milky Way and occupying the Azure Dragon Heart Fire. We can't fall behind her, clear and distinct. A long sigh came from afar. Are all foxes so smart? Yes. Yes. The sound exploded in the depths of everyone's soul sea, as if the residual vibration alone could disrupt everyone's sea of consciousness, deprive everyone of their reason, and turn them into a muddled body. Dong Huang Tai. People who entered the heaven became nervous. This guy is no joke. Xia Guixuan didn't confront him all the way because he was afraid of being entangled by him and wasting time. On the surface, it can even be described as being chased away by Tai for 1,000 miles. This is a real half-step supreme. One person can crush everyone, even this lingering sound. No one can withstand it. Long Yao took off the bell around his neck. Shuang Zhaoi glanced sideways. When did this fox hang a bell? What were you playing before? Can you show us a show? As soon as Wu Futao's thoughts turned, he saw the bell shake and turned into a bronze bell. Dang! The ancient sound shook the heaven and earth, eliminating the sound that exploded in people's souls. Donghuang Bell versus Donghuang Tai. He actually gave you the Donghuang Bell? Tai finally showed up in front of everyone, unable to hide his surprise. This is almost the only proof that he is the Donghuang. Long Yao smiled slightly. He doesn't need proof, and he doesn't care about this position. If he keeps this treasure in mind, and keeps it even though most magic weapons are given away casually, it is just his commemoration of affection. When the old friend is in front of you, the commemoration loses its meaning. Tai was silent. Long Yao sighed and said, Your Majesty is dead, why do you have to live on in a body? In my opinion, it is really unworthy of Donghuang Tai's style, and there is no respect at all. Tai said lightly, I am me, and Donghuang is Donghuang. Really? Long Yao asked back, but did not explain, just smiled and said, in any case, when the Lord of the fantasy world and our Father God are in a stalemate, the person with the highest responsibility here should be you, Your Majesty. Right. Tai's hand slowly condensed with brilliance. I don't know why Xia Guixuan let you in, and before that he didn't try to kill me first. In my eyes, all of you are just chickens and dogs. Even with a Donghuang Bell in hand, you can only delay for a while. I can kill them all by myself, so why should I be responsible for the overall situation? Long Yao smiled sweetly and asked again, really, just like the lingering sound of Tai just now, Long Yao's words also had a strange lingering sound. Is it? Is it? It's like two people talking together, each echoing. Tai's eyes widened. He clearly saw little Cayenne Fox who had been hiding behind Long Yao hugging Long Yao. Then the two figures overlapped and overlapped, just like the double images brought by the illusion, and then slowly merged into one. It became a brand new fox. Late taking. The new fox blinked. Hello, Your Majesty, you can continue to call me Long Yao, or you can call me Yin Xiaoru, but I prefer the new name Yin Xiaoru. Tai, who cares what your name is? Shuang Zhaoi came to his side silently, and the new fox rode on it without saying a word. The aura rose again and became the top of taking. Tai's mouth moved, and he didn't even know if this was called cheating or nesting dolls. How can you do this? Now it's good, a top of taking, with a taking mount under his crotch, carrying the Eastern Emperor's treasure. Not to mention whether he can defeat him, at least is there any problem in delaying him for a while? The problem doesn't seem to be too big. Shuang Zhaoai even felt a little emotional in his heart. In fact, in her heart, this new fox is the sister of the Fox King in her memory. She once served the object of loyalty, whether it is Long Gaiao or Yin Xiaoru, it doesn't count. She never thought that there would be a day when she could fight on the battlefield with his sister, like a dream. Maybe there has never been Long Gaiao, nor Yin Xiaoru, and it has always been just a fox? It's too complicated. Shuang Zhaoai doesn't want to care about these. This is what Xia Guixuan is considering. She only knows that Xia Guixuan and Long Gaiao have almost designed everything, and it can even be traced back to the way home. She doesn't need to think too much, and the battle is over. Just as she thought about this, the thoughts of the Fox King came from the Soul Sea. Long Gaiao's thoughts, which once lived in the Soul Sea, almost blended with Shuang Zhaoai without any hindrance. The real unity of man and horse, the mind is connected. Shuang Zhaoai raised his spear and rode his horse, and took the initiative to gallop towards Tai. The light and power on the tip of the spear were faint, not inferior to the light in Tai's hand. Tai didn't even think about it, but it was this pair of foxes and horses who took the initiative to attack him. Boom! Tai's dazzling light hit the tip of the spear, and a third color bloomed in the world of red and blue. The dazzling white light seemed like a still picture. Ling Moxu and others who were watching the battle behind him held their breath. Shuang Zhaoai did not look defeated. Man and horse united as one, and truly withstood Tai's attack. At least at this moment, they were evenly matched. "What are you still standing there for?" Athena's voice suddenly came from the side. "We also have our own opponents, don't waste time." Yan Wuyu glanced at her, feeling a little strange. This person is also a military advisor. At this moment, she is actually one of us. At least this reminder makes sense. Yan Wuyu looked up and looked into the distance. She didn't know where the Fae came from, but she saw Xiran at first sight. And Ling Moxu looked up and looked into the distance, and the end of her sight was exactly Guangguang. Chapter 559 Technology vs. Flame compared with Xiaoju's interstellar war, which mainly depends on technological strength, personnel quality and command art. The mainstream of the monks' war is still small-scale cutting-edge confrontation, and rarely forms a chaotic situation. Because the individual strengths vary greatly, a scratch or shock may cause damage to others, so they often tacitly distance themselves from other small battlefields and form individual decisive battles. At most, it is a 2-on-1 battle like Long Gaiao and Shuang Zhaoai fighting Tai. However, Yan Wuyu and Ling Moxu were the ones who were beaten by 2-on-1. When Yan Wuyu approached Xiran, there was also Zhumang beside him. Zhumang was the blood eclipse of Zelter, and Xiran was the fire nether. When the three of them faced each other, they all felt that fate was a bit magical. Because in this identity, Yan Wuyu was the admiral of Daxia on Kanglong Star. He had always been hostile to them, but they had never really fought. Blood Eclipse and Fire Nether fell in the decisive battle of Kyanite Star. This was a battle that Yan Wuyu missed because she went to raid the main star of Zelter. As a result, after going around in circles, she was still facing these two, as if old friends should face old friends. Compared with the Blood Eclipse leading the war at the beginning, this time it was Xiran. Because in the line of fate, the fate of Xiran and Yan Wuyu is relative. When he was homing, he was lurking in human society, beside the chief judge of human beings. He was one of the black hens that led to the trial of Yan Wuyu and Yan Wuyu's nirvana. Compared with Liu Xian's political thinking, that Yan Wuyu was Gongsun Jiayu's right-hand man and must be eliminated first, Zhurong's considerations were more selfish. Because Xia Guixuan took the source of the flame of Kanglong Star to nourish Yan Wuyu, it was equivalent to cutting off Zhurong's homing clone's fast lane to advance to taking. Without the flame source of Kanglong Star, it would take a long time for it to practice on its own to reach taking. If it is not to take advantage of the human coup to kill Yan Wuyu, when will it be? So there was that nirvana. Many years have passed, and many humans have almost forgotten that nirvana. They have long been accustomed to Yan Wuyu's youthful appearance. Only when her clone comes out can people remember that she was once a queen. But now that the four eyes meet, Yan Wuyu still feels the magic of fate, as if there is a line under her feet. No matter how you go around, it will be drawn into a circle. However, this circle is a bit inconsistent. Zhirong and Zhumang are both taking, even at the peak, while Yan Wuyu is just a Wuxiang. The result is that two takings are beating up one Wuxiang. There is no other way. There are not many people on Kanglong Star. Ling Moxu is also a Wuxiang, and she is also facing 2 takings. The changed trio has already left this battlefield, and they need to face Olympus. Zhurong looked at Yan Wuyu quietly for a long time. There was no fear on Yan Wuyu's pretty face, but the desire to fight was burning in her eyes, and she was even a little excited. Zhurong found it very difficult to understand and suddenly asked, "General Yan." Yan Wuyu responded with a "What? Does the fire priest have any advice? Why are you so confident that you can face the 2 of us alone and still be so eager to fight?" Zhurong said in disbelief. "Although we are all injured, no matter how injured we are still taking level. It would be extremely difficult for you to escape from one of us, let alone 2 of us, and you are actually excited." Yan Wuyu was stunned by the question and suddenly laughed. "No, before you fight, you always calculate the strengths and weaknesses clearly. Have you never fought a battle against the wind?" Zhurong and Zhumang looked at each other. It is hard to say whether the real god of fire and god of wood have ever fought a battle against the wind, at least they really haven't. They thought they were in a favorable situation, but were defeated by the cheating Xia Guixuan several times. "Not to mention the battle against the wind," Yan Wuyu said slowly. "Even if it is a battle of certain death, I have seen countless people who died to cover the retreat of more comrades." Zhumang said, "I can understand the general's will, but don't you have taking?" Yan Wuyu was stunned. "Who? Queen Zelt, was she excluded by you?" "She didn't come." Yan Wuyu smiled. "Guess, if I really have to guess, I think your trust in her is limited." Zhumang did not hide this point, except for being taken in by Xia Guixuan. Zelt and the Kanglong Galaxy have always been 2 completely different civilizations. Of course, your internal situation is not important to us. I just want to tell you that your exclusion and distrust have ruined yourself. I regret it so much." Yan Wuyu sniffed. "Your mental attack was successful, Zhumang. Why didn't I feel the pleasure of success at all?" General Yan is as determined as iron. He won't be shaken by such a small matter. Zhurong finally had a flame in his hand. "After all, only in the face of death can you regret it. It should have been like this a long time ago. You talk too much nonsense." As the voice sounded, Yan Wuyu's ponytail suddenly spread out, and her red hair moved without wind, rising high, looking like a blazing flame from a distance. The light armor on her body began to change shape, and the whole body was covered with fiery red alloy and unknown crystals. The streamlined and beautiful shape contained the fiery power of a star. She was still holding a gun with a special shape in her hand. I don't know what kind of energy is hidden in the cold muzzle. This battle suit and firearms with a sense of technology appeared in this place, which looked extremely inconsistent and awkward, but Zhurong and Zhumang's eyes became more solemn. Yan Wuyu's flame spirit attribute almost made them forget that she has always been in a technological society and has never become a thorough practitioner. No wonder Yan Wuyu dared to face 2 injured Tai Kings alone. They almost forgot that the configuration of human battlesuits can often multiply the strength of a soldier. And the suit on Yan Wuyu is very likely the only set of level 7 battlesuits and matching firearms that the Kanglong people have supplied with a whole country's strength over the years. What kind of ability will the only set of equipment piled up with the resources and technology of a star field give Yan Wuyu? This is the first time in 30 years that the genetic technology and individual machine combat technology of Kanglong Star have landed in a foreign land outside of warships. Bang! An invisible and immaterial beam shot out from the muzzle and headed straight for Zhurong. The astonishing speed that arrived in an instant startled Zhurong, and he subconsciously swung the flame in his hand. With his flame power, basically any energy can be swallowed and destroyed, and even rolled back. But the next moment he widened his eyes in shock and retreated rapidly. But how could he make it in time? Boom! With a sound, a terrifying mushroom cloud exploded in his hand. The proud-taking level flame in his hand was devoured by the explosion like a small flame, and Zhurong's right hand and half of his body were blown away. The remaining left half of his body flew away with a pile of black blood. In the painful roar, he grew a flaming body to replace the lost flesh, and his shape was extremely horrible. Antimatter weapons, Zhumang was shocked. Antimatter weapons have appeared for many years, but their use is very limited. First of all, no soldier can withstand the terrorist explosion at hand, and they can only be used as large-scale nuclear bomb-type launchers. Secondly, the refining and manufacturing of antimatter cannot keep up. It is unknown how many years of stock will be consumed for one use, so it cannot be used as a conventional weapon. According to the early particle accelerator, it takes billions of years to refine 1 or 2 grams of antimatter. Daxia has been researching for many years, and the refiner has improved many times, but the final stock does not exceed 100 grams. Daxia is like this, and Qianling Fantasy World is not much better. For example, the surrounding garrison planets are still using nuclear fusion missile bases as guards, which are much more cost-effective and universal. Only the front line can use such antimatter weapons. When can such things be luxuriously equipped with them? And it's not a milligram quantity. Considering the energy that can destroy the body of taking, this strike alone may use hundreds of grams. What kind of guns can withstand such energy, and where does such a huge stock of antimatter come from? Zhu Mang suddenly thought of the virtual world of Neohua. The development of the Western Star region has achieved such a leapfrog achievement in material science and antimatter extraction, directly overtaking on the curve, and crushing the fusion results of many realms in their Qianling Fantasy World. Yan Wuayu's guns are like this, so what about Gongsun Jiayu's warships? Zhu Mang's mind flashed, and the fighter plane did not allow him to think too much. In fact, at the same time as the mushroom cloud exploded, he had already turned behind Yan Wuayu, and the law of extinction blasted on Yan Wuayu's back without mercy. With a slight click sound, the fiery red crystal covering Yan Wuayu's back turned gray and cracked, but Yan Wuayu just staggered forward and actually stood firm. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 560, The Wuxiangzhu Chase Taking. Is this the material of the Galaxy flagship used to make a battlesuit? But even if it is the Galaxy flagship, there is no reason why it can withstand Taking's full-strength attack. Otherwise, how did Xiaojia go from having a conflict with Xia Guixuan to kneeling down to punish himself and even having his chrysanthemums picked? Isn't it because he realized that it is almost impossible to deal with Taking with a level of human technology, and to atone for his wrong judgment? The Galaxy flagship at the time couldn't even stop the infiltration of the dark demons, but now a mere battlesuit can actually withstand Zhu Mang. Zhu Mang couldn't even understand it for a while. In their minds, the technological strength of the Qianling Fantasy Realm far exceeds that of the Kanglong Star Domain, but the technology of the Qianling Fantasy Realm can't make a battlesuit that can protect Taking from a blow, otherwise what's the point of the monks refining weapons? However, this fact really happened in front of him, and Yan Wuayu was really not injured. Zhu Mang's mind was shocked for a while, but a warning suddenly arose in his heart, as if something extremely dangerous was coming. He subconsciously moved across thousands of miles in an instant, trying to avoid an unknown sneak attack. However, the ending was almost the same as Zhu Rong's before. A terrifying explosion exploded around him. His lateral movement barely avoided the core, but he was unable to completely avoid the scope of the explosion, and half of his body was also blown off. Looking closely, a few feet behind Yan Wuayu, there was a faint shadow of a royal sister, also wearing red armor and holding a gun. There was still light smoke coming out of the gun. The royal sister blew gently, and the smoke blew away, and she herself disappeared. Yan Wuayu's clone has become so arbitrary that there is not even the breath of another person's existence, and it has become a top-level magical power to assist in combat. A formless fire spirit really has the upper hands in the battle against the two Takings. In just a flash, both Takings were blown off half of their bodies, which was horrible. Their biggest cognitive bias is that they completely ignore that the Kanglong Star Domain has not only passed for 2 or 3 years. Instead, it has been stolen for 30 years. 30 years of technological advancement, 30 years of magical training, in the ever-changing interstellar era, can already make the sun and the moon a new sky, which can be regarded as a different era. It's a pity that there is no one in Qianling Fantasy World who can play with time like this. If there's, it's not here, but in the Dragon Clan. Yan Wuayu didn't even care about the cracked armor on his back, nor did he look at Zhu Mang. His body was like lightning, and he chased Zhu Rong, who was flying back relentlessly. The excitement in his eyes had long faded, and now there was only calm determination. Zhu Rong complained bitterly, and now he had to consider how to survive. Everyone thought that Yan Wuayu would compete with Zhu Rong on the origin of fire, and who is worthy of being called the god of fire. Who knew that Yan Wuayu was playing this game? Times have changed, Lord God of Fire. Guangong and Rushu over there were even more frustrated when facing Ling Moxu than Zhurong and the others were when facing Yan Wuyu. In terms of cultivation, Yan Wuyu and Ling Mozu's strengths are very similar, both at the peak of Wu Xiang. And if Yan Wuyu relies on technology, then Ling Mozu relies on artifacts. Zhuan Yuan Sword. This thing is already a dimensionality reduction attack for others, and it is even more dimensionality reduction for Gonggong Ru Osho. The real Gonggong and Ru Osho are actually the grandsons of Huangdi, the sons of Xiao Hao, and the brothers of Zhuansu. The so-called defeat of Gonggong and Zhuansu in the battle for the throne is actually the most typical civil war for the succession. In other words, this sword is their grandfather's sword. Zhuansu defeated Gonggong with the sword and made Ru Osho his minister. Of course, they would be suppressed when they saw this sword. If the real one would the mirror image? Facts have proved that it would. Guangong thought that this cold-faced sword girl who was cultivating the icy attribute would compete with him to see whose water system or frost was more subtle, but he watched Ling Mozu take out a Zhuan Yuan sword and chop him head-on. Guangong couldn't call upon any water laws, and was completely suppressed by the will of all living beings emanating from the Zhuan Yuan sword. The same was true for Ru Oshao. His job was to harvest, and the mountains and rivers on the Zhuan Yuan sword reflected their divine duties. This was Grandpa told you not to do it anymore. What is the biggest difference between those who reach the taking level and those who are without form? It lies in the application of laws, the mastery of various essential rules of heaven and earth, and using them for my own benefit. But under this suppression, they were completely deprived, and they could only rely on their own pure power to fight Ling Moxu. However, with a clang, Ru Oshao, as a golden god, held the innate five elements gold sword and met the Zhuan Yuan sword. Then he was chopped into two without any suspense. Ru Oshao, the Zhuan Yuan sword did not stop and continued to chop down his head. Ru Oshao teleported and ran away. Who the hell is so stubborn to try how sharp the Zhuan Yuan sword is? Frost attacked him, and Ling Moxu is too lazy to chase Ru Oshao, so he just swept back. Crack. Guangong stared at the Xingqian's haki in his hand, which could withstand Xia Guixuan's attack. It was cut in like tofu. Guangong hurriedly let go and retreated, not even needing the shield. So Tai, who was fighting Yin Xiaoru and Shang Xiaoai, was shocked to find that Yan Wuyu on the left was chasing Xiran Jumang with a laser gun and running all over the street, and Ling Moxu on the right was chasing Gonggong Rushao with a golden sword. Two Wuxiang, chasing for taking. This world is too dreamy. So, this is called the fantasy world, right? Of course, Tai could see what was going on, and he also felt it was difficult. The key is that the five elements and four gods were all seriously injured, and they could not exert their true combat power. Jumang, who once performed like a boss in Zelter, and Gonggong, who could fight with Xia Guixuan in the Taiyin plain, were now half crippled and no longer as glorious as they used to be. What was even more aggrieved was Rushao. Even though he was not injured, Xia Guixuan deliberately beat him up when he broke into the formation, as if he was waiting for this moment to make everyone on the same level and satisfy his obsessive-compulsive disorder. Tai suddenly had a hunch. If Xia Guixuan had planned this, as if everything was calculated in advance, then his teasing of Athena seemed not to be as obscene as everyone imagined, but was it purposeful? Mount Olympus at this time. It seemed like a lot of things happened before. Xia Guixuan went to find Dijin, Xiaoju attacked the star field, and Longgaya led the crowd to invade the heavens, and they started the war separately. It was so grand, but the actual time was very short. It was so short that Zeus' family had not even dealt with Kronos, who was released by Xia Guixuan. At this time, the rabbit Athena arrived at the battlefield. Athena was very surprised along the way. What surprised her was not that she could see her relatives and herself here, but that she was actually prepared for it. What really surprised her was the mess along the way, as if she had been run over. The kingdom of gods that I just passed seemed to have the shadow of the Nordic countries, but Odin and his men were nowhere to be found. I wonder if Xia Guixuan had plowed through it before and killed all the people. Or maybe the Nordic gods were doing something else. But no matter what, the kingdoms of gods were in such a mess. After Xia Guixuan broke in alone, looking at the ruins, it was like a replay of what had happened in the real world. Looking at Kronos in the distance, who was about to be defeated in his resistance, Athena bit her lower lip and whispered, "Sister, it's relatively easy for you to deal with this god system." Change asked, "How do you deal with it? You have gathered the divinity of many people." Some of them are their mothers, elders, or sisters, and they are repressive. It's almost like Ling Moxu is chasing and hacking people at this moment. Change was stunned. What about you? Athena looked at the lonely figure in the distance who did not join the battle, and whispered, "This is the fate that I should break, and it is also the true answer to the mystery of this universe." Change glanced at her. "I want to know who I am. Why is there a mirror image of me, existing in a place I don't know? Why do those who have fallen and I who am still alive have the same mirror image? What is the difference between us?" Athena said as if talking to herself. "This is also the mystery he is waiting for me to reveal." Chapter 561, A Chaotic Family. Roar. Kronos was madly releasing his destructive power. Maybe it was because of the madness of being in prison for thousands of years. Maybe it was because he was originally very nervous. Maybe it was because he knew that he could not defeat the siege of his children. From the beginning, he seemed not to win, but just to vent. He bombarded wildly without rules, and used big moves one after another without considering the loss, like a mad beast, killing as many as he could. In fact, the more he did this, the less he could kill people. They were all gods with extremely rich combat experience, and their cultivation was not a rookie who would be killed by your shock. Who would be afraid of such a mad beast? Everyone would choose to wander around and look for opportunities, and would not go hard. However, there are prerequisites for wandering and fighting, which requires the most basic organization and cooperation. For example, the most basic thing is that when the opponent is staring at one person and hammering, the other should attack the back and take the opportunity to hurt the enemy. Even if he has always been AoE, the overflowing power is too strong, and you are worried about the harm to innocent people and have to wait for a better opportunity, you should at least try to harass and share the pressure of the person being hammered. And if you find that the person being hammered can't bear it, you should try to rescue him, right? Game players understand the truth, but gods don't. The first half is still okay, everyone understands the truth, and they can cooperate without rehearsal. On the contrary, when the more powerful gods hold up Kronos, the situation becomes a little subtle. Hercules was the first to withstand Kronos' attack. Zeus and the gods found an opportunity and smashed Kronos with their killer moves. Kronos, who was out of the cage, suffered heavy damage for the first time, but became even more crazy. He didn't care about others at all. He just held up a time shield and continued to smash Hercules crazily. Hercules was called Hercules and seemed very awesome, so how could he play with his own ancestors? He could not hold on, but he sadly found that no one saved him. His mother and wife were not here. Not all gods have projections in the Qianling fantasy world, or can we simply say that Alkmene and Hebe are not of high enough level to be backed up? If his mother and wife were not there, there was actually no one who was very close to him here. Because he is a magical illegitimate child. His mother is the great-granddaughter of Zeus, and his father is Zeus. Other people's fathers are grandfathers, and his father is his mother's great-grandfather. Great-grandmother Hera hated him very much because of this. Although they later reconciled their differences and married her daughter Hebe to him. Wait a minute, Hebe is the daughter of Zeus and Hera, so today's test question, is Hercules' wife his half-sister or his great-aunt? This is the original content of the mythology. If you delete it, how will readers see the background of the story? If you delete it, you are crazy. Go harmonize Greek mythology. Delete it, you are paralyzed, you are brain dead. Thinking back to the time when Xia Guixuan fought with the Olympian gods, he only left a comment to Xiao Siming after returning, "This kingdom of gods should be destroyed. I am tired. I am tired of calculating their relationship." No matter how difficult it is to calculate Xia Guixuan, the Olympian gods themselves are too lazy to calculate it. Hercules is just the tip of the iceberg, there are many more that cannot be calculated. For the gods, if Hebe was there, they might give some face or hat to her brother-in-law because Hebe had poured wine and bathed for everyone. Hera would also give some face to her son-in-law. If Hebe was not there, who were you? Poseidon, Hades and others had nothing to do with him, so who cared about him? Except for Zeus himself, who still had some incense, almost no one cared about Hercules. Poor Hercules struggled to resist the heavy blows of his ancestor, blood spilled from his mouth mouthful after mouthful, countless magical powers bombarded Kronos, he laughed wildly, continued to hammer without dodging, and went completely crazy. Zeus originally wanted to rescue Hercules, but seeing this situation, a hint of fierceness appeared in his eyes, and the act of rescue turned into world-destroying thunder. The thunder fell, and even Hercules had to be aided in. Saving people may lead to being hammered. While Kronos was crazy at this moment, as long as he could kill him, what else mattered? Boom, the thunder of the gods descended, and Kronos roared wildly, a little shaky. Poor Hercules had vomited blood and flesh, and was covered by thunder, and the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. A shield suddenly appeared above his head, blocking the thunder and Kronos' critical strike. Hercules looked around in a daze, and saw Athena, who was embarrassed and alienated by everyone because of being played by Xia Guixuan in public, rushing over desperately. Only she was saving herself. However, if she entered such a battle, she couldn't escape it. The real Athena in the distance also saw this scene. I also saw the scene where Zeus and others continued to attack regardless. The various powers flashing in the space at this time, like a slow-motion movie, made people feel heavy in their hearts, and there seemed to be sad music, lingering in the heart. Looking at the despair and disbelief in the mirror image of Athena, and the ferocious and evasive eyes of other gods, it seemed as if this virgin goddess who was insulted in public by the enemy was no longer worthy of being a god, as if she could take advantage of this moment to wipe out Kronos, the unwelcome illegitimate son, and the toyed person who had humiliated the gods. Athena suddenly remembered the game against Gaia. Xia Guixuan used his own clone, and would rather cut off the path of magical power that might kill the 3 corpses in the future, to protect everyone with his body, including his women, and her Athena. He even protected her Athena more strictly because she was injured at the time. When Xia Guixuan's clone died, the blood that was sprayed also splashed on her fair face, mixed with her own blood, and no one knew. At that time, there was actually not much emotion. After all, there were his women there, and it seemed right. However, compared to now, it is really ironic. It's not that Xia Guixuan is so good, it's that others are so bad. Including myself, I'm not much better. As a god, how can I have so many unnecessary emotions? The first is majesty and dignity, and the pros and cons are parallel. Roar, Kronos launched the strongest attack before dying. The explosive power rushed the besieged gods to pieces, and even Zeus retreated with a groan. At this moment, the soft moonlight sprinkled on the world. Where did the moon come from? Zeus's heart was alarmed, and he looked back. The silver light like a galaxy poured down and swept over. The power of the moon permeated the time that was shattered by Kronos. The power of time that the gods could bear suddenly became difficult to bear. It seemed to have an extremely cold meaning to freeze the soul and pierce the shattered time into the soul sea like glass fragments. Some people wanted to resist, but found that they couldn't gather the intention to resist. It was like a mother's call, intoxicated in the cradle of the night. So die gently. How much moon god's divinity is this? Zeus was shocked. Why do I feel so many familiar meanings? Even he couldn't help but hesitate for a moment under the moonlight. The next moment, Kronos' fist as big as a mountain hit him on the head. Bastard! Zeus's head was almost cracked by the hammer, and he fell back with blood spurting out. The ribbon wrapped around him and bound him tightly in place. Kronos laughed wildly, pounced on him, and bit Zeus' throat hard. Zeus roared and twisted, and the father and son rolled on the ground and struggled and fought like wild beasts. The Olympian gods didn't even have time to be shocked. A battle axe tore through the Milky Way and rushed straight towards the sneak attack from afar. Ares, the god of war. He saw that the root cause of all this was the incredibly beautiful woman in the distance. As long as he chopped her, everything would be. With a bang, a girl with rabbit ears and pink armor rushed over from the side, knocked his axe off, and chopped it directly on the ground. Huge cracks spread across the earth, and the world began to shake. The plane is about to collapse. At the same time, a bloody cold light has arrived in front of Zeus. Athena's war spear? Where did another Athena come from? Zeus felt the same frustration as Guanggang Rushao. He found that he couldn't even dodge under this spear, as if no matter how he dodged, it would pierce his chest. He struggled to suppress Kronos and took out the Aegis shield to block it in front of him. This is a shield that can block any damage. It is said that Athena's Medusa shield was modified from it, but Zeus obviously has another one in his hand. Zeus raised the shield to meet Athena's war spear. Looking at the indifference and determination in the familiar face, Zeus said in disbelief, "You dare to kill me?" Athena stabbed the shield with a spear, and the first reaction seemed to block it. Zeus breathed a sigh of relief and laughed. "Just you want to kill me? You know, even your shield." Puff. Before he finished speaking, the tip of the spear pierced through the shield and pierced his throat. The spear tip was stained with Xia Guixuan's blood. The handle was made of black cinnamon wood, Chaos's enchantment, Xia Guixuan's fire refinement, Gaia's blood sacrifice, it can be said to be the strongest spear in the heavens and the worlds. The first god killer was her father. The spear did not stop, piercing Zeus' throat, and even Kronos, who was suppressed behind him, was pierced to the ground. Zeus stared at his daughter's calm face with disbelief, and then looked at the other Athena, who was at a loss. The chaotic Olympus was silent. Chapter 562, Twilight of the Gods. Kronos and Zeus, father and son, died together. Hercules lay on the ground, dying, and it was unknown whether he could be saved. The Olympian gods panted and looked to change who was blocking them, and Athena, who pierced her father and grandfather with a spear. They lost their minds for a moment. Too filial. But it seemed that they were the first to be filial. Wasn't it them who wanted to kill Kronos? Wasn't it their father? It seemed to be a tradition, nothing to say. What about now? Of course they can still fight, and then what? Eris looked at the dimension he had split open, and suddenly wondered, what are they fighting for? I don't know. I can't think of it. I don't even know what the meaning of existence is. I vaguely remember that the kingdom of God that I had a meaning for and for which I lived and fought seemed to have been destroyed by a demon from the east, and I died of exhaustion in a bloody battle. But they're dead. Why are they fighting here for no reason again? What is this place for? He turned his head and looked at Hades. Hades was here. Could there be some explanation? But Hades was also in a daze. The death of Zeus was indeed a big shock to all the gods. No matter how licentious, cruel, and dominant he was also the most powerful leader. Even if Poseidon wanted to overthrow him all day long, he had to admit that he was powerful and played a core role. The entire system depended on him. But he suddenly disappeared, and he died, under the spear of his own daughter. Poseidon and Athena had once fought over the ownership of Athens. Looking at Athena's calm eyes at this time, he was so scared that he retreated. Is this still Athena? If this is, then who is the one who was teased in front of everyone before? If the one who was teased was the real Athena, then who is the one who killed his father? Athena drew out her spear without saying a word and turned to the mirror image. The black blood on the spear dripped all the way to the ground, and everything it passed was turned into desolate. But it strangely stopped the shaking of the plane, and the plane split by Ares was hailing again. It's not the effect of his blood, but the world will repair itself. Athena walked in front of the mirror image and said, as if chatting, the 9 layers of heaven that were previously cut by a sword have now healed themselves. If we don't come in to join the battle, the world will belong to the Lord of the fantasy world again. The mirror image looked at her blankly, not knowing how to react. What do you mean by telling me this? Who are you and me? Athena looked down at the dying Hercules. If I want to save you, you may still be able to survive. But do you want me to save you? Hercules did not answer. His eyes were dim, and it was unknown whether he was unable to answer or had lost hope in life. Do you remember that you have actually died a long time ago? Died in the war between the gods and the East Emperor realm? Athena finally said the question that many people are thinking about. When a mortal dies, the soul enters the underworld. But the death of a god itself means that the soul dissipates, so where should it enter? Hades turned his head and stared at her, his expression a little sharp. We are not going to enter anywhere, right? If it is gone, it is gone. It will be reduced to ashes and no longer exist in the world, Athena whispered. But why are you here? This is not a mirror. Nor a backup. Yin Xiaoru, who was in a stalemate with Tai, also said, this is just something similar to the Yin family's funeral that I was operating before. Boom. The galaxy battleship roared, shattering the entire Earth, and billions of lives were reduced to ashes. Xiaoju was expressionless in the command cabin. No need to pity. This is not life. It's just an archived old database. This is Gixu. Wang Shu's cold light flashed, forcing Dijun to step back half a step. Xia Guixuan pointed his sword into the distance and smiled coldly. It's just that the outside world has updated the expansion pack, and a copy of the old world archive is left in the database. Ahua said that you are garbage, and this is true. Why do some people die and don't appear here? Athena said to Hercules. For example, your mother, she is actually immortal. When she died, her soul entered the underworld and reincarnated, so of course she won't be here. Hercules' eyes slightly showed some color, as if he had heard something worthy of comfort. Why are the living people here too? Athena finally paused when she said this, pursed her lips and sighed, because in the original trajectory, I must have died. The entire kingdom of God has been backed up, of course it won't be subdivided. Mirror Athena took a half step back. Not only was she a safe backup, she was also redundant because of the batch packaging. Athena did not mean to mock her, and whispered, I was originally dead, and you are the only Athena who exists. However, the reason why I didn't die, because of an accident, Yin Xiaoru was saying to Tai, Your Majesty's battle with Dijun was supposed to be the final battle of the two kingdoms of God. Everyone became the old world together and was archived. Ah, it sounds a bit romantic. That was the twilight of the gods, right? Tai looked solemn. Maybe it was true. Because Dijun was also seriously injured at the time. According to the deduction, if it continued, it would be the twilight of the gods, including the subsequent battle of the Western Kingdom of God. There is a hand controlling the direction of the world, causing all the gods of the old world to perish and enter the abyss. But there was an accident. Xia Guixuan, who was still striving hard on the path of no phase in the backup, was a cannon fodder that should have fallen in the twilight of the gods. When the kingdom of God was crumbling, and the great Sima and the lesser Sima were all seriously injured, he exploded too clearly. From then on, the world had a strange, dusky and incomplete trend. Xia Guixuan succeeded Donghuang, Dijun was defeated, the Western gods fought, and trampled on various countries. The person who caused the dusk of the gods became Xia Guixuan. The dusk of others was over, and Donghuang realm became the only unified kingdom of God. Originally, only Xiao Siming, who was without phase, stepped into taking under this victory and endless replenishment of resources. Maybe this is the second accident? Not for the time being. Accidents will be chained, such as the robbed wife change, such as the surviving Athena. The trajectory of the world has already begun to change. In short, if it continues, what will happen when Xia Guixuan reigns over the heavens? Will someone force him to enter Guixu? Xia Guixuan doesn't know, and Yin Xiaoru and Xiaoju Athena can't know for him. Because reality has played another big joke. Xia Guixuan abandoned his position and ran away. Yin Xiaoru thought about the past and always felt that if someone was observing, his eyes might fall out. All the accidents started when a female god couldn't bear it and rescued a tyrant who should have died long ago and took him into practice in the kingdom of God. All the unexpected turns seemed to be, they fell in love. The biggest surprise was, the man was a hard-headed person at that time. Ahua said, that's right, no one in the world can guess the hard-headed person, so it became an accident. Do you know why you are different from them? Athena finally said to the mirror, because as a backup, you originally have no meaning to exist, but you have feelings for men. Mirror Athena, maybe we are cheap, the more we are like that, the more we feel. I'm not here to laugh at you, because your feelings are fed back to me, and I feel the same way. Athena's eyes were a little strange. What will happen when artificial life has emotions? While watching the movie, Athena felt a little painful in her heart and asked herself what happened. It was nothing, she just experienced what Xiao Siming experienced again. She found that she didn't have these before. So the reality of the world was shaken in her heart, and all the causes and effects began to become clear. It became another accident. Do you want to merge with me? Athena invited. I think we can give it a try. The mirror image stammered. I was kissed by a man, and I'm not pure anymore. It doesn't matter, I'm willing. Chapter 563, Dragon Invasion. Compared to the Olympus gods who were all stunned, Taia was also shocked, but Dijun had no reaction at all. Because he knew all this very well. It was also his own choice to merge this archive backup and absorb all kinds of suns. Xia Guixuan knew that Dijun had the same pride in his heart as him, but everyone responded differently. Xia Guixuan found another me? Then kill it, I am the only one. Dijun found another me? Then absorb it, and let me take the lead. It is difficult to say which choice is more correct or better. It is nothing more than different paths, and the final point is, I can only be me, and all the choices are mine. Xia Guixuan believes that Dijun has more ideas in his mind, such as starting to question why such a thing exists, and starting to question where I came from, but he will not say it on the surface, that is, I have my own ideas. This is the understanding and respect that should be given as a long-time enemy. So Ahua's first reaction before was that these two could actually cooperate. After all, there are more dangerous enemies behind them. But unfortunately, their grievances are too deep. Entangled with thousands of years of enemies, each with so much blood dead on hand, and their own temperaments cannot cooperate together. Then they can only destroy one side first, integrate the resources of the other side, and then fight the new enemy. Throughout the ages, there have only been these two options. And now it is obvious that Dijun is losing. The control of the 33 heavens is tilting. If each plane was originally half red and half blue, The ice blue representing Wang Shu and Xia Guixuan's hand is obviously getting bigger and stronger, and has begun to encroach on Di Jun's fiery red light. The battle of the kingdom of God, the struggle for world control. Every battlefield may affect the balance of victory and defeat between kings. Di Jun felt the strain, but his expression did not change. He just shook his head slightly. Do you know the biggest difference between Qianling Fantasy World and your Kanglong Star Domain, Xia Guixuan? Xia Guixuan said, the difference is that we know why we are fighting, but Qianling Fantasy World does not. I do know it, Di Jun said. The fantasy world expands the heavens and searches for the remains of the holy demon in order to piece together and trace the origin of the universe. It is not only to find our own origins, but also to find everything behind it. At the same time, if all the planes are pieced together, why can't we be the main world? Xia Guixuan thought for a while, nodded and said, the aggressiveness of Qianling Fantasy World is due to this. It is also the will and pursuit that you should have, Di Jun said lightly. That is the will and pursuit of my backup. Of course, it is also because of this that he will be in harmony with me, and the ultimate goal is the same, Xia Guixuan said. What do you want to express by telling me this? What I want to tell you is the real difference between you and me. Please advise. The difference is that the expansion and counterattack of Qianling Fantasy World is within a tacit scope, Di Jun said. The process of Qianling Fantasy World collecting the remains is the personification of the contraction of the universe. It is nothing more than the process of the world from nothing to creation, and then returning to the origin and the destruction of the world one day. Chaos explodes and all things are born. Chaos shrinks and all things die. In other words, perhaps the behavior of Qianling Fantasy World will eventually lead to the destruction of the universe. This is in line with the way of heaven. The ebb and flow of the tide, the birth and death of the world, is just a cycle. Xia Guixuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Ahua grabbed his collar in her arms. But you are not. Everything you are doing now is beyond the scope. Di Jun sighed. No one knows what will happen when you break the Thousand Edges fantasy world, and no one knows what will happen to the universe after you piece together a complete chaos. There is no way to understand what will happen if chaos falls in love with you. What will happen if one person fucks the universe? Xia Guixuan, Ahua, actually, Ahua and Xia Guixuan have said this before. At that time, they said that our cooperation would have a chemical reaction, which is different from my own attempt to revive. That's the general idea. But how come the taste has changed after Di Jun described it like this? Ahua even felt a little bit excited in her heart, as if it was fun. Xia Guixuan sensed Ahua's vague brain waves, and was so scared that he almost dropped his sword. Ahua, what are you thinking about? Ahua? Di Jun seemed to be unaware that the two were raising question marks, and kept talking to himself. Everything has lost judgment, lost control, and is beyond the trajectory of comprehension. According to what we, as gods, tell mortals, that is a deviation in fate, Xia Guixuan said with a straight face. Isn't it great? The second you're saying is that my fate is in my own hands, but when it comes to you and me, my fate is in my hands, and I am responsible for the creation and destruction of the world. What qualifications do others have to determine my fate and observe the direction of the universe? Di Jun smiled slightly. That's right, but Xia Guixuan, what? I said so much, to say that my behavior will not cause any problems at least for now, and you have even been hostile to Gaia, and everything has been laid out. Di Jun sighed. Don't you think that when your entire army attacks the Thousand Edges fantasy world and is in a stalemate, what will happen in your own Kanglong Star domain? I know you have arranged Yawu and Hunan, one guarding the nine heavens and the other guarding the netherworld, but, is that enough? It was as if his eyes had penetrated through many planes and saw what was happening far away in the Kanglong Star domain at this moment. Just as Di Jun finished speaking, the three realms of the Kanglong Star region suddenly began to shake slightly, and then the shaking became stronger and stronger, and soon evolved into a shaking of the world. Planets derailed, and fleets cruising around made emergency landings, and were shocked to explore everywhere, wanting to see where this earth-shaking change came from. Yawu floated quietly in the sky, with her hands slightly closed, and light and darkness roared around her, filling the sky above and the nine underworlds below, suppressing this turmoil. She slowly opened her eyes, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. As expected by the master, they are really here. The high-level elf people were all around. Turin Kangla Eni and others guarded the surroundings, and asked hurriedly, where's the direction? Yawu smiled slightly. Even the direction is the same as the master expected. It is the dead world. Because that is the most symmetrical point, the high-level Zelt people were confused. What was symmetrical with what? Aho has a pair of eyes. One is with us. Where is the other one? Yao Wu smiled and said, where did Aoli come from? He is the god of death of the dragon clan, and the dragon tomb of the dragon clan is of course the other eye. Boom, the 9 nethers trembled, and a crack appeared in the void. A vast number of dragon clan warships broke through the cracks, and countless real dragons swept in. The dragon clan attacked the Kanglong star field. The next moment they saw a group of winged Zelt original clan warships, covering the netherworld. There was a faint light flashing under the warships, and endless Zelt original clan and beastmen armies were summoned through space to block the front. The warships that had not all entered the fantasy world appeared in the back under the leadership of veterans such as Yu Gihung. Yao Wu led the beastmen air force including Lorca to float above it, and the beastmen mother nest was swaying. Hunidum commanded the netherworld, and the army of death was suppressed below, and thousands of undead and fire demons roared to the sky. The dragon clan, which had just formed the momentum for a sneak attack, inexplicably found itself trapped in a jar, with ambushes everywhere. The dragon god raised his claws to stop his own army. He seemed a little surprised that the Kanglong star domain was so well prepared. Not only did he know who the invaders would be, but he even knew the location of their invasion. The dragon god at this time was completely different from the one Xia Guixuan had seen before. The vastness of the starry sky was gone, and there was only the violence of extinction. The 2 dragons of time and space stood side by side on the left and right, and their expressions were very rigid. A bone dragon stared at Yao Wu with hatred. It was Aoli. There was also a little white dragon behind them. It blinked twice, and quickly made a zombie expression. Yao Wu was suspended in the void, looking at the dragon army in front of him, and sighed softly, Dragon god as well. My master asked Yao Wu to convey greetings from an old friend, although he knew that you couldn't hear it at this time. Chapter 564, The Forgotten Aho. Even on Xia Guixuan's side, many people did not know what the purpose of Xia Guixuan's sudden attack on the Qianling fantasy world was. Everyone thought that they felt that they had reached the strength and wanted to eliminate this enemy that kept causing trouble for themselves. Before, there was always a phantom demon causing trouble for everything, and you were everywhere. Who could stand this? This time Xia Guixuan returned with a changed trio. Long Yao's AOI and key taking, and human military technology has made great progress. With such a strong strength in hand, it is indeed possible to consider eliminating this hidden danger. The strength of Qianling fantasy world is obvious to all. Even if the powerful Kanglong star domain wants to defeat Qianling fantasy world, it is not an easy task. Xia Guixuan also had to use the information gap to create confusion, surprise attack, make trouble, and rack his brains to make various arrangements to achieve the current upper hand. Zhu Mangzu Rong and others also thought that they kept Yao Wu and did not bring her because they did not trust her, and they used this to mock Yan Wuyu. No one dared to imagine that the purpose of Xia Guixuan's battle was to lure the enemy. Everyone thought it was normal for him to attack the Thousand Edges fantasy realm, and the third party obviously thought so too, so they fell into the trap. Xia Guixuan had been waiting for the third party to take advantage of the situation to invade from the beginning, and had already spread a net of heaven and earth to wait. How dare he be so crazy? Not only did he not distrust Yao Wu, but he entrusted her with important tasks and sat in the center. Even the main force guarding the star field was Zelter. Zelter, who was always thought to have not had time to come back for the military review, had actually been assembled all the way far away and could be transferred to any appropriate battlefield at any time under space teleportation. The little dragon apprentice, who was always thought to have no contact, actually always obtained information about the dragon clan through her, and every move and even the direction of attack was clear. In fact, the possibility of mutation of the dragon clan was something that he had begun to suspect long before he met Yao Wu. Xia Guixuan was calm, and Yao Wu and the others were also prepared. There was no nonsense between Yao Wu and the dragons. In fact, the dragons did not respond to Yao Wu's greetings. After a brief confrontation, the dragon god only responded with one sentence, "Kill." The dragon army charged forward, and the warship's gunfire resounded through the netherworld. The Zelt energy storm illuminated the darkness of the netherworld, and the huge 9-headed snake raised its head to fight the dragon. The bone dragons and the undead were entangled, and the netherworld instantly became a ghost prison. Dijun sensed this sudden change. He was shocked but also admired it. There is a reason why you were able to break through the heavens back then. The details of your layout and your far-sighted thinking are breathtaking. Xia Guixuan smiled. Are you okay? At least I beat you because you were injured at that time. Di Jun stared at Xia Guixuan's expression and said slowly, do you really trust Yao Wu and Hunun's abilities so much that you think they can fight against the Dragon Clan? The strength of the Dragon God is not inferior to what you and I were before the breakthrough. It is definitely the top of taking, and there are almost no weak adult dragons. The overall strength is so strong that even my kindling fantasy realm dare not provoke them. You only keep this little strength? Are you sure you can succeed? There is no need to shake me with such words and make me feel guilty and worried. Xia Guixuan sighed. Since I arranged it this way, I have my reasons. By the way, why do you have so much time to care about my retreat? No matter whether I can keep my retreat or not, you will lose first. Clang. Wang Shu chopped down straight, and Zai blocked it with his sword. The original situation of the two swords interlaced in confrontation has become a clear attack and defense. This is the external representation. In the actual law confrontation, the kindling fantasy world is almost completely transformed into the Taiyan. The dark blue color completely invades time and space, and the red sun power retreats to almost no place to stand. Xia Guixuan versus Di Jun's old enemy battle. It seems that in such a confrontation without fireworks, he is about to win again. That is not a personal victory, but a victory for the kingdom of God. It seems that Di Jun is struggling to hold on at the last moment, but his mouth suddenly bends into a smile. I don't know when a ray of cold light lit up in the distant void, piercing through the endless dimension, passing through the vast plain, breaking the sun candle, and tearing the Taiyan Yaoying. Up and down, from ancient times to the present, converged into a single point, shooting out the final destruction. Hawaii. Xia Guixuan has a backup plan, and Di Jun doesn't have one? Before he entered the kindling fantasy world to merge, he obviously laid a sniper outside to respond. I care about your base, not because I am worried about you, nor am I so bored as to want to shake your Taoism, but because I am seeing if you have any other backup plan to deal with me. Di Jun's laughter rang out in the sea of consciousness. When you are sure that you have done your best, that is the time to kill. How will you deal with this arrow? The soul communicated, and such a long taunt was only a moment. Xia Guixuan had no time to pay attention to what Di Jun said, and the light had already reached his chest. Hao Yi's angry sneer was also heard in the distance. Xia Guixuan, if you fail this time, it is because you are too impatient and actually tried to start a war on two fronts. The word war was only pronounced as a Z and was cut off in the band transmission. The arrow had already reached Xia Guixuan's heart, but a slender jade hand stretched out from his arms, stretched out his finger and flicked the side of the arrow, deflecting its trajectory. Di Jun, Hao Yi. The angry electronic voice of the Gundam came from his arms. Have you never treated me as non-existent? A Gundam jumped out, holding a huge laser gun and shooting into the distance. Yi, come out. The laser went away, and with a BIU sound, it was unknown whether it hit Hao Yi. The air was very quiet for a while. Di Jun, who was desperately trying to block Xia Guixuan's sword, showed a somewhat stupid expression for the first time, and then became a little funny. I'm sorry, everyone really treats you as non-existent. If you don't believe me, ask other viewers. Since Xia Guixuan's sudden attack on kindling fantasy realm, you haven't done anything. Even when facing the Olympus god system, you shrank your head and didn't say a word. No, I said something. It seems that I said something like making trouble in the heavenly palace or something, and then my head was pushed back. At the beginning of the battle between Xia Guixuan and Di Jun, this guy also poked his head to look, and then the Gundam's head was washed away, and he pitifully went back and hugged it back. It's just a cute trick. It can be traced back to an earlier time when fighting with Gaia. The heaven and earth formation that Xia Guixuan had high hopes for, which was its own body, ended up being messed up and used by Gaia in return. Xia Guixuan almost beat him up as a traitor. Di Jun said chaos is so and so in his mouth, as if he was very cool, but he didn't treat this guy as a human at all. He was a Gundam, a brain, and a figurine to entertain Xia Guixuan. It was not until this moment that people suddenly realized that this guy was really chaos. The real supreme. As long as it was given a hand, it could completely beat all the taking into meat patties. Blind spots and thinking are really scary things. Did Xia Guixuan even think of this in advance? Unfortunately, it wasn't, because at this moment Xia Guixuan himself was a little dazed, and he had forgotten that this pig brain flower was a powerful fighting force. The seemingly funny Gundam laser, under the blessing of Ahua's mind, chased the light and shadow, and saw through all time and space and illusions, and accurately hit Hao Yi in the gap of the eternal river. With a muffled groan, the hidden sniper was pulled into the battle. Gundam put away the laser gun, picked up a big sword, and hooked his finger at Hao Yi. Not bad, your strength is higher than I thought, your hat is green, and you are stronger. Hao Yi's astonished expression instantly became colorful. Chapter 565. The serious Ahua is called chaos. Regardless of whether Xia Guixuan intervened in the historical line, Yi did not attach importance to henge. From a historical perspective, it is not easy for women in slave civilizations to have any status. After all, they are just playthings. In the context of political marriage, the status is better, but there will be no corresponding feelings. Most of them are just mascots, and I am afraid they are not as favored as ordinary maids. From the perspective of immortals, it is rare for cultivators who are determined to ascend to heaven to talk about love. What kind of immortality is there if they are obsessed with love? If a novel dares to write about this, someone will criticize it in the book review area every now and then. From the perspective of feudal literati writing stories, emperors and heroes who do great things have never been bound by love. Only those who pass by the door without entering are heroes, and wives are like clothes. Yi has these three attributes. He never intended to give the elixir he sought to henge. Henge's stealing of the elixir to ascend to heaven was originally a kind of revenge. The literati is a literati with a literati syndrome. If you ask her if she regrets stealing the elixir, she actually doesn't regret it. If she regrets it, it's because she looks stupid for being tricked by Xia Guixuan to the East Emperor realm. Even without Xia Guixuan's intrusion, she would have stolen it anyway. Why should she regret it? Why should a man write a poem and think that a woman should regret it? Why don't you ask Yi if he regrets having sex with field beasts? It's so annoying. To be honest, when Xia Guixuan fulfilled his promise and defeated Yi to obtain the ownership of Change in a fair and square manner according to the rules, Change actually felt a real sense of belonging in her heart at that time, and hoped that the man who took her would treat her well. So the brain dead ran away and deserved a beating. Of course, the beating was over, and everyone started a new life. Change likes Xia Guixuan, who is now a Sea King, so there is no need to mention the old accounts. But no matter whether Yi values Change or not, as long as he is a man, he can't stand the shame of his wife being taken away by someone. Especially since you mention it to her face. Killing people is not enough, and beating people is not enough. The real owner, Xia Guixuan, would not be so bad. No matter how much hatred there is between them, people should still be generous and keep some face. But who is Ahua? If she still cares about others' face when doing things, is she still chaos? Not only did it mention it, but it also mentioned it with great joy. You don't touch such a beautiful wife. Are you sick? You let others get it, right? Yi gritted his teeth and pulled the magic bow. Did you see her after she was watered? Did you take a peek when you were hiding outside just now? She has become more beautiful and more feminine. Oh, by the way, you know, she is especially beautiful when she does that, with that red little face, confused eyes, and little mouth, nail. The arrow pierced through Gyoda's head. However, Ahua didn't touch Gyoda's head at all. There was nothing inside. It quickly returned to its original state and continued to be enthusiastic. Why are you so angry? I said this for your own good, so that you can feel a little involved, or your anger will become stronger, right? You don't know, her voice is so charming. Ah. Xia Guixuan wanted to cover his face when he heard it. You can't imitate it, and the way you imitate it is like being beaten. Yes, even I want to beat you. Shut up, Yi finally said the first sentence since he appeared. 9 consecutive arrows came in a rush, covering all the vital points of Gundam's body, vowing to completely smash this bastard. Horoi shoots 9 sunsets, Gundam waved his sword and blocked them all. I heard that Gui. Zhuan also learned this trick from a master. It's very handsome. I have to say that this guy is still willing to steal the advantages of the enemy, such as his wife. Xia Guixuan felt that if he were Yi, he would either kill the stinky Gundam or commit suicide, otherwise he would not be able to stay here. Even appearing here is a mistake. It's a pity that even the 9 sunset arrows have been used. There is no way to deal with this Gundam. What other means can Yi have to win? It's too difficult. He is just a powerful tribal leader who has become a god. He had to ask for medicine before he ascended to heaven. Now he has finally become clear after so long. The strongest means is long-range sniping instead of head-on confrontation. The long-range ultimate move was broken. How can you fight against a Chaos Supreme in a head-on confrontation? Ahua didn't show her real ability, she just played around, using an expired old version of the Gundam laser sword to chop and chop. Hauyu couldn't beat it, and was about to go crazy. But he suddenly flipped back, pulled away from the Gundam, and drew his bow and arrow again. The violent aura spread, and you could feel his full anger. Even the eyes behind the bowstring were blood red. The previous sneak attack to kill Xia Guixuan was not as powerful as this arrow. The target is Olympus. He wants to kill Henge. Henge and Yuta were fighting against a group of Olympus gods who had lost their spirit. When they saw the defeat, they suddenly felt a strong palpitation. She turned her head and looked up, as if she saw through the boundary between the realms, and saw the fatal arrow and the bloody eyes. Kill her, and the shame will be gone. Athena quickly held up her shield in front of her, and she was also worried about the power of the arrow. She didn't know if her shield could block it. She felt that the plane was about to be blown up, and it was not something that a mere shield could stop. Henge shook her head slightly, but laughed instead. Don't worry about him, this is not about me and him. I have a man. Athena was stunned for a moment, and then she heard a loud clang from the sky. She could vaguely see another pair of even more angry eyes. The ice blue longsword left her great enemy and turned around to chop the arrow. Xia Guixuan. The arrow was cut off, and the power dissipated. At the same time, Xia Guixuan's right shoulder was also cut by Zai, and the blood was flowing. His battle with Dijun was not as primitive as it seemed on the surface, but it was always a conflict of endless laws, the most extreme collision of the power of the sun and the moon. The two seemed to be talking normally, but in fact both sides were using all their strength and could not be distracted. Otherwise, how could he sit back and watch Ahul being funny here? Now not only is he distracted, but he has also moved his sword away to cut off the arrows. How can he still stop Dijun? The power of the extreme yang invaded his body. Xia Guixuan groaned, but didn't care. The sword light burst out and slashed at Yi instead. You seem to have made a mistake. She is my woman, how dare you touch her? I really thought you were domestic violence. Yi barely blocked it. How could he stop Xia Guixuan's angry attack? The divine bow in his hand that shot the sun and the moon was smashed to pieces by a sword. Yi spit out a mouthful of blood and retreated in embarrassment. Xia Guixuan chased him relentlessly. Die, is this to pursue personal grudges and ignore the battle of the realm? How could Dijun miss such a good opportunity? Zai was sacrificed, and the scorching sun burst, and he would take this opportunity to give Xia Guixuan a fatal blow. The next moment, his eyes blurred. A jade hand stretched out from the Gundam cabin and grasped his ice sword with bare hands. If you keep making trouble, Gui Zhuan will be angry. The electronic voice of Gundam turned into a pleasant queen voice. No one knew when her vocal cords returned. We have to cooperate properly at least once. Is it Chaos who will cooperate? I don't cooperate when I think I will, and I do when I think I won't. As the voice was spoken, Dijun suddenly found that the entire outer world had changed. It seemed to start to shrink, and then it started to expand. It was rhythmically contracting and expanding, just like a human heart began to beat. Dijun's heart skipped a beat and he said in a lost voice, you can already control this world. Yes, with so many people's efforts, if I still can't gain control of my own body, I will be laughed at by Gui Zhuan. How come you are getting more and more comfortable with Gui Zhuan? What is your relationship? No matter what their relationship is. Dijun used all his strength to take back control of the world, but found that it was in vain. The world began to have a magical appearance, the scorching sun faded, and blood floated in the air. If observed from a distance, the dazzling blue dragon heart fire of the Milky Way gradually turned into a huge heart, beating in the universe. All the heavens and the worlds gradually became one, and the huge pressure was coming. Dijun's forehead gradually broke out in sweat. He couldn't bear the pressure. Although Xia Guixuan was chopping Hao Yi, the power of Tian was still spreading, and the power of the realm was completely shifted. When Xia Guixuan and Chaos worked together, was there anyone in the world who could bear it? I don't know if anyone can bear it, but Dijun felt that he couldn't bear it. He threw the Zai sword at the center of the heart with all his strength, and flew away while Ahua couldn't fully control his body. At the same time, Xia Guixuan's sword pierced Hao Yi's chest. Chapter 566, Thousand Edges Without Edges, Fantasy World returns to fantasy. Xia Guixuan did not chase Dijun, but Ahua did so consciously. Only Xia Guixuan and Yi were left. The blazing sun in the sky was setting, dragging their shadows very long, as if foreshadowing the ending at this moment. The light in Yi's eyes gradually dimmed, and the anger that had previously split his eyes disappeared. turning into calmness. Xia Guixuan was also looking at his wound, which was red blood, different from that of everyone else in Qianling fantasy world. Dijin had a backup here, but Haoyi did not. Xiao Siming was suspected of being artificial, but Haoyi did not. He was always the same Yi, who rebelled and overthrew the tribal leader of the incompetent Xia Queen when he was immortal. Like change, he became a god under Xia Guixuan's watch. He held a magic arrow in his hand, was not afraid of the Queen of Godzai, shot and killed 9 golden crows, and became a great legend of killing gods with a human. Originally, this kind of attribute was the real object of cooperation. It's a pity that the incompetent Xia Queen he overthrew was Xia Guixuan himself. And after he came to power, he was also a tyrant, which was not worthy of praise. Add to that the fight over his wife. The grudges have been entangled for thousands of years, and they can't be erased. It's just a pity that he really has a normal life, unlike other opponents. When Xia Guixuan was a monarch, he fought with Yi, and when he was the Emperor of Heaven, he fought with Jun. In fact, it has always been a reflection of the war between the Central Plain civilization and the Dongai, from the human kingdom to the heaven, until one side was defeated and China was unified. But in Xia Guixuan's heart, of course, Yi is more unforgettable. In his eyes, other gods are more like symbols, including Dijun. When Dijun was defeated in the Battle of Gods, I thought you were dead, he finally spoke, as if reminiscing about the past. Both of us, earlier, I also thought you died in GD, Yi replied calmly. Xia Guixuan said, but I don't think there is any need for you to continue living. It sounds like an inhuman sentence. Yi seemed to agree, maybe. If I had died at that time, I would not have suffered the humiliation of today. In fact, although I was defeated, I did not hate you. My desire for revenge was not strong, and the goal of restoring the Emperor of Heaven was almost impossible. I don't know how much meaning there is in surviving. There was really no hatred. The winners were the kings and the losers were the bandits. Maybe there was hatred at that time, but after many years, everyone had become gods and lived forever. How could they still care about the grudges of the mortal world? Even if Xia Guixuan hated Yi very much, it would have faded later. Otherwise, he would not have avoided touching change and only told her, proving that I am better than him. Xia is gone. For a period of time, even the recognition of Xia was controversial among later generations. Yaoqian clan was even more difficult to verify as it was just a story on paper. The history of Xiangxin was submerged, and the land of Zhen no longer existed. Xia Guixuan himself abandoned the past of Si Taikang. Taikang's tomb stood for a long time. Yi was even divided into 2 legends, and the dispute continues to this day. What is worth writing about the public and private grudges between the 2 people? I used to want to help the Emperor of Heaven regain his glory, but today, the meaning of our existence has changed, Yi continued calmly. The Emperor of Heaven found that his origin was a mystery, and he couldn't find the origin of his birth. I know you are doing the same thing now. The difference is that your origin can be traced, and you only care about Xiao Siming. Xia Guixuan nodded. The one who knows me is still an old friend. The Emperor of Heaven's goal is the same as yours, and the final target is behind the scenes. Yi sighed. You are all heroes, being played around by others, directed to create the twilight of the gods, and the war continues to this day. How can you be willing? Xia Guixuan was silent for a moment and did not answer this. I don't care too much about these. I know who I am, and there is no Xiao Siming that makes me anxious. I must find an answer. Yi suddenly laughed. In addition, I want to kill change after being scolded a few times. For this reason alone, I am not a hero. It is better to kill myself, which is a little more reasonable. With the last sentence, his body began to disintegrate and dissipate. Self-disintegration. Xia Guixuan neither pushed nor stopped him, but watched him disappear steadily, as if he had also ended his past. For Yi, this might be a kind of relief. He really had no meaning of existence. Xia Guixuan's previous words, which sounded inhuman, were the truth from a higher dimensional perspective, but they were cold. For humans, everyone has a meaning of existence. But not necessarily for gods. When he shot an arrow at change, he lost even the last bit of meaning of being a human being. The death of a soldier was just right, and it was also the hero's final elegy. Change penetrated the realm and came behind Xia Guixuan. Without even looking at Yi, who had dissipated like dust, she silently cast a spell to heal Xia Guixuan's wounds and whispered, "You are seriously injured. Why don't you stop the bleeding first?" Xia Guixuan seemed to have forgotten what the person who had just dissipated had to do with her, and didn't mention it at all. This is not an external injury. It doesn't matter whether you stop the bleeding or not. Is it the breath of the sun raging in your body? Yeah. Xia Guixuan turned around and hugged her, smiling. It will take a kiss from Change to get better. Change blushed and spat. When will this happen? Having said that, she still obediently hugged his neck, kissed him on the lips, and passed on the Taiyin key. The gentle breath of the moon soothed the restlessness raging in her body, and the injured shoulder healed itself. And in this outer world of the Lord of the Fantasy World, the woman who embraced and kissed him at the top of the Thousand Edges Fantasy World seemed to indicate that the world's ownership had been settled. Xia Guixuan stretched out his hand and moved the Zai sword that was inserted diagonally into the ground. Change took a curious look and blushed as she whispered, "You don't really want Zai? It's unclear whether Zai exists or not now. I'm not that bored." Xia Guixuan smiled and suddenly threw the Zai sword up, and at the same time threw his own Wangshu up, with the two swords interlaced in the air. The red and blue that permeated the entire universe suddenly twisted and rotated, and quickly gathered back to the intersection of the two swords like a whirlpool. The endless galaxy was full of strange phenomena, and the whirlpool of red and blue attracted everyone's attention. Even Tai and Yin Xiaoru stopped fighting and stared at this change in a daze. The whirlpools converged and intertwined, the red light wrapped around the blue sword, and the blue light wrapped around the red sword, spinning into a typical Tai Chi shape. The red and blue faded and turned into black and white. Tai Chi returned to one, surpassing the heavens. This is the sign that the world returns to the origin, and the two yin and yang return to the origin, gathered into the original point. In the void, a female shadow suddenly appeared. It seemed that the heart, lungs, liver and various blood vessels flashed vaguely, and then disappeared. Only the most powerful people can see what was sucked away by a Gundam. Xia Guixuan, however, didn't care that the origin of the world was taken away. He gently stretched out his hand, and the two swords in the air turned into Tai Chi and fell into his palm. Change, who was watching from the side, always felt that this was controlling the universe. It was true. Xia Guixuan concentrated on Tai Chi for a while, and suddenly pointed to the sky. Break. Mount Olympus collapsed inch by inch, and the 33 heavens began to collapse, gradually blending into one, like a ball at the beginning. Thousands of edges and edges, returning to the origin. Xia Guixuan pointed to the ground again. Disperse. The Olympus gods who were at a loss in front of Athena, and the 5 elements and 4 gods who were struggling to support under the pursuit of Ling Moxu Yan Wuyu, no longer needed to support, and directly disappeared. Tai's eyes widened in horror. Before he could even shout no, his body began to fade. The disappearance of the half-step supreme was just a matter of thought, and he had no room to resist at all. The fantasy world returned to fantasy, and everything disappeared. Yin Xiaoru thought of the Yin family database she had moved. It was as if a super administrator had pressed format. So the world returned to nothingness. Thousands of edges have no edges, and the fantasy world returns to fantasy. Xia Guixuan hung in the void, whispering to himself, what should return to nothingness, then disappear? A big hand penetrated the 3 realms, as if to stop his actions. However, it was too late, and it could be said to be belated. Xia Guixuan looked up at the sky and laughed. I have been waiting for you for a long time, and you are here now. It's too late. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 567, The Dragon Clan Changes Flag. Xia Guixuan could almost imagine why the other party reacted so late. No matter how supreme one is, it is impossible to completely ignore time and space. Just like it takes Gaia 1 or 2 days to go to the lunar plane, that efficiency is already very shocking. That is billions of light years, countless realms. Even if the means are strong enough to turn the universe into a house, it takes time for people to walk from one end of the house to the other, right? However, Xia Guixuan's surprise attack this time was sudden and efficient. From the time he suddenly went crazy and came in to make trouble, until the outer world was pierced, and he and Ijun were fighting, half a day had passed? What the other party wants to do is still on the way. Maybe they haven't even set off yet. Because the other party will also think that Xia Guixuan is just because he thinks they don't have time to interfere, so he will boldly and confidently attack the Qianling fantasy world with all his strength. But in fact, they have other means. The dragon domain is not far from the Kanglong star domain. Xia Guixuan dared to enter the Qianling fantasy world with his entire army. The dragon domain stabbed him from behind and he would definitely die. Using the dragon clan is enough for Xia Guixuan to regret it. As a result, Xia Guixuan was well prepared. Yao Wuhunun led the people to ambush the dragon clan. The two sides were in a stalemate, and the Qianling fantasy realm was about to break. At this time, the other party was furious and wanted to intervene again. Is it too late? In fact, it was in time. Because people don't have to come here to intervene. Originally, it was similar to what happened in an old archive server. If there was any change, it could be formatted remotely at any time. If formatting didn't work, the worst thing would be to cut off the power. If power outages didn't work, the worst thing would be to smash the server. What happened? The server grew legs and ran away. Ahua took back the control of all planes, which was equivalent to the server running away, and you didn't even provide electricity. The formatting operation was controlled by Xia Guixuan, and it was completely gone. Accidents happened one after another. Who could bear this? Finally, across thousands of planes, he attacked brazenly. Xia Guixuan had been waiting all the time. He didn't chase the desperate enemy Dijun. He stood there and reminisced with Hao Yi, which was to slowly eliminate the injuries caused by suppressing Dijun and be ready to welcome the supreme enemy who might come. Sure enough, he came. Boom, the black and white key swirled up to the sky and collided with a giant hand that was suppressing it in midair. Ahua stopped chasing Dijun. The body of the Gundam exuded faint ripples, as if supporting the entire world like mending the sky. Otherwise, the Thousand Edges fantasy world might collapse in this attack, and Yin Xiaoru and others would all be destroyed. Xia Guixuan was slightly at a disadvantage in this attack. After all, he had fought for a long time before, and his losses were a bit large. He was also injured. He couldn't control the opponent's overflowing power. Only with the help of Ahua could he protect the others. But that was all. The opponent couldn't break the Xia Guixuan and Ahua combination either. He was so angry that he changed his methods and hit them more than a dozen times, but it was useless. He was still as stable as a mountain. Ahua frowned slightly. It was not surprising that they were in a stalemate. Even if the opponent came in person, there would be more clear tactics to use. If they found a way and gathered their strength, they could completely repel the opponent. The Battle of the Thousand Edges fantasy world could be considered a great victory. But now there seems to be a problem. We can't drag it on any longer. If we are held back by the other side and can't get back to the Kanglong Star region in time, can Yao Wu and the others stand up to the Dragon God? Their mission was just to hold back the Dragon Clan army, but they didn't expect to win. If Xia Guixuan can't get back in time, the base camp will collapse. The other party seemed to have thought of this as well. His slightly frustrated offensive slowed down a bit. As he approached rapidly, there was already a hint of smile in his voice transmission. Xia Guixuan, I must admit that you are very strong and thoughtful. You have repeatedly seized various time and space differences to allow us to deal with them unexpectedly. But this time we are fighting on two fronts and are stretched to the limit. I really don't know who gave you the confidence. Xia Guixuan was a little tired, but still smiled. Dijun also confidently mocked me with these words before. But now he is the one who is running away. Oh, the man laughed and said, chaos protects this world and blends into one, which means that your subordinates can no longer evacuate here and return to the star field to support it. If you still have other backup plans to repel the Dragon Clan, then you call me dad. The advantage of the tongue is meaningless. The man's voice turned cold, but the way you look makes me want to see you watching the collapse of the star field and the extinction of your clan. The expression on your face must be very interesting at that time. Xia Guixuan said calmly, you all thought I asked Yao Wu and the others to hold back the dragons and wait for reinforcements. How could it not be? Even Ahua thought that Yao Wu's side could not possibly defeat the dragons. I used to think that the dragons were like a virus. Leaping over the dragon gate was like an infection, and traveling around the heavens to trade was like spreading outward. Xia Guixuan said slowly. Later I woke up and realized that the dragons were not viruses, but we the unexpected ones were. The dragons traveled around the heavens, not to spread the virus, but to kill the virus, and put the unexpected world on the right track. The visitor did not answer, as if he was very surprised by Xia Guixuan's judgment. They are the antivirus software you created. Therefore, they are the most artificial, combining the advantages of all creatures, integrating the legends of all civilizations, assimilating, suppressing, and integrating all changes. Xia Guixuan smiled slightly. As long as we find the root, then you can create dragons, why can't we? As he spoke, I don't know what idea he conveyed to Yao Wu, and Yao Wu nodded. The netherworld river that originally separated the headless city and the headless city suddenly surged up, roaring and boiling, as if some ancient giant beast was about to emerge from the river. It really was. In the boundless river, a huge dragon had slowly emerged, and its majestic dragon eyes were fixed on the dragon army in the sky, roaring to the sky. Amid the roar, the giant dragon came out of the river and circled up to the sky. The terrifying dragon power shook the three realms, and the dragons who were fighting with his elder army were all dumbfounded. This is the power of a real dragon. Wait a minute. How come this dragon is exactly the same as the dragon god, both in appearance and aura? The visitor from the sky was also very shocked. You actually imitated the dragon god? Yeah, Xia Guixuan said calmly. It's not called imitation, because this is the dragon god. All of its flesh and blood are based on the information analysis contained in the divine dragon's blood. What about the soul? The AI you developed yourself. This dead world originally had a mountain of dragon bones. There were many dragon corpses and dragon bones, and many souls. A long time ago, Yao Wu enlightened an ordinary skull and grafted a snake's torso. Does it look like the prototype of a dragon? I didn't pay much attention to how it continued to graft and upgrade, but isn't the origin of dragons like this? The divine dragon's blood is combined and filled with artificial flesh and blood, and it is a dragon. Xia Guixuan sighed. Luo Wei, Yao Wu, Hunan, and tens of thousands of human scholars have spent 30 years of secret research for this day. The visitor was completely silent. Why didn't I use it before, but just let Yao Wu hold back the dragons and wait for us to come back? Xia Guixuan smiled and said, because it's not you holding me back, but I'm waiting for you to appear so that I can hold you back. When you can no longer interfere, the dragons will be mine. Roar! The new dragon god ascended into the void, like stars scattered in the sky, and all the dragons were down. The commands of the new and old dragon gods in their soul seas were clashing wildly, making them at a loss, and the program completely collapsed. The new and old dragon gods collided with each other, and Yao Wu's soul abyss went up and down, from dealing with a large army of dragons to taking besieging the old dragon god. In the earth-shaking reversal of the situation, a little white dragon blinked again, and no one knew what operation it had done. Far away in the dragon domain, where the azure dragon heartfire was stored, the formation clicked and moved a little. The crazy old dragon god's eyes were always there, and suddenly he laid down and fell asleep. Then the dragons woke up, all accepted the orders of the new dragon god. The dragon domain turned against them, collectively changed their flags, and all became Xia Guixuan's dragons. The dragons roared, and the sound shook the 9 heavens. The attackers who came from afar looked at Xia Guixuan's calm expression and were speechless. The next moment, they withdrew and flew away, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Invincibility and pure strength is never true invincibility. Sufficient strength, combined with comprehensive planning, distant layout, and collective wisdom, that is true invincibility. Chapter 568, Jinlunga Chasm. The battle in the fantasy world, which was thought to be dragging on for years and decades, was settled in just one day, faster than Xia Guixuan's victory over change. Even the extremely powerful force of the entire dragon clan was incorporated as a whole, and the strength expanded to an extent that the high priest Shang Xiaoi could not imagine. If the battle of the Qianling fantasy world was still the result of everyone's hard work, the inclusion of the dragon clan was a variable that stunned everyone. It was a war that was fought on 2 fronts and was stretched to the limit. Everyone thought that Xia Guixuan was impatient and crazy, but unexpectedly, he achieved such a dramatic result. The source of everything can be traced back to the day when he first met the dragon god. The artificial god that Xia Guixuan had been thinking about for so long finally came to fruition. Shang Xiaoi looked back on the past and really admired his father god. Of course, there was no need to worship him anymore. He had done everything. At most, he would bring his apprentice with him. Well, don't think about this for now. She was going to find Xiaoji with Longyao Yin Xiaoru. Together, they took over the dragon domain and studied how to stabilize the control system of the dragon clan. Otherwise, if there was any control change on the other side, all the dragons would turn against each other again, which was no joke. Luo Wei had already sneaked to the dragon domain and studied in the formation at the source of the flame. It was called a formation, but it was clearly a control system combined with the meaning of the formation. If the code could be modified, the new and old dragon gods could only exist as a kind of guardian mascot, and the power of ruling and commanding the dragon clan would be given to Xia Guixuan. Xia Guixuan had already freed herself from artificial blood and was completely self-conscious. Only by letting Xia Guixuan take charge would there be no more problems, and the dragon clan could completely become their own power. Xia Guixuan did not do much else, but just executed Aoli and completely ended the cause and effect of the death world. And Ahua connected the death world here with the dragon clan's dragon tomb and got her own pair of eyes. In fact, the dragon domain itself is also a part of it, maybe legs and feet. Xia Guixuan was too lazy to care, and let Ahua do it herself. As Ahua put more and more pieces together, the Kanglong star domain's positional composition became larger, almost as if it could be regarded as the core of the universe. Ahua gave birth to the universe and it died. This seemed to be an imminent problem, but it seemed that it was not obvious from the surface. The Kanglong star domain only had signs of prosperity, and there was no sign of returning to silence. Only the Qianling fantasy world was returning to silence. Xia Guixuan lay in his kingdom of God, surrounded by clouds and mist, staring at the Tai Chi in his hand, as if looking for some secret hidden in it, and he did not move for a long time. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Xia Guixuan said casually, "Come in." The door opened, and Athena walked in on the clouds. As soon as she walked in, her face flushed. She turned around and wanted to leave, but she didn't leave after all. She just turned her head away and didn't look over there. Neither of them reacted to her arrival. It seemed that everyone knew that Athena had witnessed many scenes before, so what was there to be shy about? Resting and indulging after the war was understandable. But Athena had never thought that Rabbit would go into battle right away. Come to think of it, it made sense. Everyone took it for granted that she was a maid, and Rabbit was a girl after all. Xia Guixuan was so radiant in this battle, surpassing all living beings and calculating everything. The gods and immortals in the heavens disappeared, and he controlled the universe and unified all the worlds. Which girl could resist such charm? Even Athena herself couldn't stand it. If she was afraid and surrendered before, now she was simply fanatically worshipping. I thought that after the war, he might choose his own way. He played in public, which means he has intentions. She knelt down and bowed her head, saying, "Your Majesty, the Nordic side was indeed sent by Emperor Jun to find the Jinlunga chasm. As your Majesty dissipated the immortals, they also disintegrated. I resurrected Frigga and asked her to wait outside." Xia Guixuan looked away from the Tai Chi in his hand and laughed. "Why bring Frigga but not Odin?" Athena raised her head slightly, glanced at him with a look of resentment, and did not answer the question. "Why bring Odin? Bring Frigga, maybe you want to be a thief." She paused and whispered, "Frigga and Freya here are one and the same. They are both in charge of marriage and reproduction. Freya is vain and would be willing to submit to a strong man like your Majesty." Xia Guixuan was stunned for a moment, but didn't say anything. He just said, "Goodbye for now." "Have you asked?" "I have asked," Athena said. "The king of the thousand-edge fantasy world was indeed Emperor Jun, but his ruling power did not reach the level of obeying orders, so those he sent out were from the Chinese systems such as Ziran and Gongguang. He could not command the Greek and Nordic gods." Xia Guixuan nodded. "It should be so. Since the real Emperor Jun entered the fantasy world, his ruling power has increased significantly. The Nordic gods began to obey orders and were sent to find the Jinlunga chasm." "Yes, and it is also because the chasm belongs to the Nordic system. If it were us on Olympus, we would only tell you that chaos is chaos. Isn't there also a saying about cracks on Olympus? It's vague after all. Anyway, we haven't seen it. The Jinlunga chasm in Northern Europe is a foregone conclusion. Have they seen it?" "No. They also heard that this gap exists, but no one has seen it." Athena couldn't help asking, "Dijun and you both want to find this, because this is probably a convenient passage to where we are going," Athena said. "Your Majesty, don't you plan to go to the real Milky Way?" Xia Guixuan shook his head. "The real Milky Way may not be the coordinates of the world where they are, and it may not be possible to find the way to where they are. The gap at the beginning of creation is the most likely passage. Dijun and I have the same idea on this. Unfortunately, I have searched all over the Thousand Edges fantasy world, but I can't find where this gap or crack is." Athena thought for a while. Could it be that it is not in the Thousand Edges fantasy world, Xia Guixuan stared at the Tai Chi in his hand in a trance, where everything in the Thousand Edges fantasy world is clearly presented. He searched every inch of the direction, but couldn't find any gap. Is it really not in the Thousand Edges fantasy world? Or is this just an illusory legend, something that does not exist? Chaos is chaos, there is no such thing as a crack in the universe. Maybe it was because when Ahua was first exploded, it looked like a crack had been opened, so it was spread. Come to think of it, there should be no passage directly leading to that place in the Thousand Edges fantasy world. If there was, the other party would have passed through there long ago, which shows that the other party did not master this direct shortcut. But Xia Guixuan always felt that there should be such a way. Otherwise, how did my sister get to the vicinity of the Dragon Realm? With my sister's strength at that time, how many years would it take to go to the Dragon Realm at a normal speed? It is impossible for her to abandon her duties and leave the Eastern Emperor realm for so many years. There must be a shortcut. But near the Dragon Realm, Xia Guixuan is now leading a group of dragons to search. That is their home for who knows how many years. How could they not know if there is a passage? But they didn't find it. This is strange. The other party's Supreme Master couldn't come in time, so how did my sister get here? Athena observed the man's expression and asked in a low voice, Your Majesty, are you really in such a hurry? Your strength is expanding too fast, why don't you digest it first? It's not that I'm in a hurry. If this is indeed a passage that even the other party doesn't know about, then it will be effective as a sneak attack. We will digest ours and look for it at the same time, Xia Guixuan said. The revival of Northern Europe and Olympus is up to you, don't worry about anything. Frigga and the others may not know as much as men. If you need to resurrect the 3 Odin brothers or your father and grandfather, do it. The most important thing is to get a result. If I want someone to serve me, I might as well have you do it. Why do I need them? Athena didn't know whether she should be ashamed or laughing, and her expression was weird. After listening for so long, Change finally couldn't help but wipe her mouth, raised her head and asked, Why don't you ask Ahua? It stands to reason that if she doesn't know about this kind of thing, no one else will know, Xia Guixuan said angrily. That bastard said he didn't know, but he got impatient when I asked him a few more questions, and he even wanted to hit me with a laser sword. This pig brain has a different way of thinking than normal people, so it doesn't seem strange even if he doesn't know. God knows whether he really doesn't know or not. Xia Guixuan was really angry. Since he claimed to cooperate with this seemingly high-ranking thing, he has done nothing but hindered others. Look at what other people's portable grandfathers look like, and look at this one of his own. He can't even chase Dijun away. What else can he do besides being cute? Chapter 569 The truth is getting closer. After thinking it over, Xia Guixuan went to see Frigga. Change, Athena and the rabbit exchanged glances, but did not follow and quietly retreated. Xia Guixuan went to the side hall and saw Frigga with a lot on his mind, only to realize that there was no one around him. Seeing Frigga cautiously getting up to greet him, Xia Guixuan was also speechless. It seems that this tyrant and thief cannot be washed away. But to be honest, he is interested in being a thief, but not interested in being the mother of several children, and even less interested in this kind of fake person that obviously exists as a data archive. This can even be reproduced after disappearing. What is this? Before, I openly teased Athena because there was a real person, and I originally planned to merge this with a real Athena, which was equivalent to teasing the real Athena, and the same is true for Xiao Jiu Wu Yu's mirror image. What else is nothing? Is it fucking NPCs in the game? No need to be so cautious, I'm here to ask serious questions, Xia Guixuan said seriously. Did Athena tell you? Frigga observed Xia Guixuan's expression and felt that he really didn't seem to be interested, so she breathed a sigh of relief and said carefully, Yes, we do have the memory of the Jinlunga chasm, but the strange thing is that no one really knows where this thing is. Since no one has seen it, why do you have this memory? I remember that your kingdom of God originally had such a chasm. When we were born, there was a chasm separating the kingdom of mist and the kingdom of fire. We called it the Jinlunga chasm. But we know that since there are kingdoms, this is no longer the initial state when the world was first created. We just regard this existing chasm as the manifestation of the chasm that created the world, and it is not actually that one. The real one is probably the same as the rift rumored in Olympus. In other words, it feels like the world was split when it was first divided. Yes, it should be just this kind of image. The process of chaos exploding was seen by people and remembered. It is probably spread by Gaia and others. In fact, there is no such thing, Xia Guixuan touched his chin and thought for a while. This makes sense. So Ahua was impatient to chop me because she felt that I was exposing the ugly story of it being blown up and was unhappy. Frigga, I really don't know how to describe the person who calls chaos Ahua. But if it is the one in front of me, it seems that there is nothing wrong. Xia Guixuan said, but why did Dijun ask you to find it, and you looked for it very seriously? You didn't tell him that it doesn't exist? Are you just pretending to show it to Dijun? Frigga showed a strange look and shook her head. I don't know why. Theoretically there shouldn't be such a thing, and Odin also said that it is impossible. But I subconsciously feel that it might really exist, and I instigated Odin to find it together. Huh? Xia Guixuan asked curiously, what do you think? It was you who instigated Odin. Yes, it's just vague, and I feel that the end of the heaven is there. It seems that Athena has recreated the right person. Xia Guixuan looked Frigga up and down, and fell into deep thought. In this world, it is scientific to say that something is just a momentary phenomenon observed at a certain moment in the past, and it does not actually exist. After all, even the chaos at the origin of creation can be manifested as a pig-brain flower that makes trouble every day. If it is the first crack at the beginning of the explosion, it has long disappeared, but as long as it has existed, it is very likely to be found. So, if there is a thing or a place that even the enemy who created all these causes and effects does not know about its existence, and countless heroes such as Emperor Jun, Odin, Zeus, or Xia Guixuan do not know about it, but it can be found by my sister and can also be sensed by Frigga. Then what is the common point between my sister and Frigga? The goddess of love, marriage and reproduction? Xia Guixuan thought about it and pointed to the void. There were ripples in the void, and gradually a graceful figure condensed. She saw Xia Guixuan's face with some confusion, and knelt down quickly in fear. Great Lord God, I will serve you now. Don't. Xia Guixuan stroked his forehead speechlessly. I have no interest in you either. Although you are very beautiful, I don't want to meet a group of like-minded people every time I go out for a walk. Beautiful Aphrodite. Aphrodite lowered her head and said nothing. Let me ask you, what is your memory of chaos? It's a crack, Aphrodite said with certainty. The world was born in the crack, and the source of everything we are pursuing is there. What if I tell you clearly that chaos is not a crack? Will you question your memory? Then the crack must exist, Aphrodite said carefully. I can feel the source of my divinity, a vague connection. Xia Guixuan looked at Frigga, and Frigga said, I think so too. Xia Guixuan pondered and said, if you work together, can you sense the approximate location of this crack? The two goddesses looked at each other, and bowed their heads and said, give us some time, we will try our best. This is what we hoped for, Great Majesty the Lord God. Xia Guixuan did not disturb the two of them again, leaving the side hall for the two to cooperate and comprehend. As soon as he turned the corner of the palace, he saw Athena standing by the pillar waiting. Seeing him come out so quickly, Athena seemed a little surprised and chuckled. He actually came out like this. Xia Guixuan leaned against the pillar with his arms folded, and smiled. Please, it's okay for others to look at me like this, but I could have touched you at any time before but I didn't. Is it reasonable for you to look at me like this? Athena tilted her head and said, you want to touch me at any time, otherwise why would you not avoid me in anything you do? You are completely exposed on Mount Olympus, right? In fact, there are so many things that Xia Guixuan avoids her. This war plan is obviously secretly shared with Long Yao Zhao Yu soon. If the draft plan is to be printed out, it will probably be thousands of pages. Athena knows nothing about it, and even passed on false information. The only thing he doesn't avoid is the matter between men and women. Of course, there is no need for everyone to talk about those things at this moment. What they are talking about is the matter between men and women. Xia Guixuan stretched out his hand to lift her chin and adjusted her face to himself. Athena seemed to be a little resistant, but she finally turned back obediently and looked at him quietly. From your tone, I want to touch you at any time, and you are ready at any time, Xia Guixuan asked suddenly. Athena said, I can't resist you. Just like in front of the gods, you play with me at will, and I can't resist you, Xia Guixuan asked. Just can't resist. Athena's face finally flushed, and she was a little angry. Do you have to make people say embarrassing words to satisfy your desire to conquer? Xia Guixuan shook his head slightly. I have another reason. You say it first. Athena held it in for a long time, and finally said angrily, okay, I am willing to be played with by you. I don't want to resist at all, and I even feel complacent that you look down on them but want me. Are you satisfied? Xia Guixuan's expression became serious instead. Did you feel that you became real at that moment? Athena was stunned. There seems to be something wrong with this rhythm. He really didn't want to hear a few humiliating words of obedience. Is there really another reason? But then again, he asked something very fundamental. It was indeed because he found that he had developed a sense of admiration for this man, and it might even include the sense of being conquered and belonging that arose after being kissed in public, breaking the attributes that seemed to have been set in her life. She was not the eternal symbol of chastity and virginity, nor was she forced to lose her virginity to someone, but she took the initiative to want a man. This extreme conflict violated her character setting. So something broke in her heart, broke through the invisible wall, and saw the truth of the world. How could she be the daughter of Zeus? Did she have any memories from childhood to adulthood? Did she have any memories of how to practice? What did she look like as a child? No. From the moment she could remember, she was the daughter of Zeus, the radiant goddess of wisdom, the symbol of chastity, a preset character setting. An artificial god. The exploration of the Qianling fantasy world is not the end, this is it. Chapter 570, The Fall of the Goddess. Athena said in a low voice with some disappointment, so you don't touch me, and the others in the room right now, because you despise me? You despise a man-made life that came from nowhere. On the contrary, Xia Guixuan laughed, and his fingers moved from her chin upwards, across her milky smooth face. Athena was a little nervous, not knowing what he wanted to say. But she heard Xia Guixuan laugh and said, who is not artificial? I was born by my parents, so am I not artificial? Athena, is the artificial one that everyone is talking about an artificial one? She felt her waist tighten, and Xia Guixuan hugged her and turned her around, so that she was pressed against a pillar. Xia Guixuan lowered his head and whispered in her ear, let's make a person together, what do you think? Athena's eyes widened. You were talking about such a serious topic just now, how come the topic suddenly changed to this? I can't keep up with your brain circuit. You also said that Ahua's brain circuit is different from that of normal people, but yours is very similar? But then again, Athena was also thinking, in her situation, can she really have a child? Xia Guixuan said, everything in the world, a blade of grass, a tree, a leaf, or a stone, can become a demon, a living being. Even if you are a living being with data programs as the core, since you have evolved into flesh and blood, then there is no difference between you and other objects that have been enlightened into immortals. Athena felt that this logic was also correct. Data spirits? Robot spirits? Compared with other stone spirits, flower spirits, and tea spirits, what is the big difference? Aren't dragons a kind of demon? It's just that they have been high and mighty gods for a long time, and some of them can't stand this gap. It's almost the same when they see it through, and they don't worry about gains and losses. The past Athena is long gone, and now she is no longer the goddess of war and wisdom, and she has no symbol of chastity. She was being pressed against a pillar by a man, and during the squeezing, her thoughts rose, and she hoped that the other party would be more frivolous. She also keenly realized that when he said this, it seemed that he was not only talking about her, but also referring to someone else. It was as if she was a stepping stone for him to explore other things. Athena did not feel the loss of being looked down upon. People always have to find their own place. She was actually the same as a maid here. Seeing how self-conscious Tuta was, she was the same. Could she still expect to have a love affair with him like Change? She finally whispered, don't you care that I may become uncontrollable like the dragon god at any time? I used to care a little, Xia Guixuan said, but after the dragon god incident, I don't care even more. Why? You soon can find the true dragon's intention and wash away the original bloodline restrictions by practicing my skills. Can't you? Athena was stunned for a moment, and then ecstatic. What should I do? Xia Guixuan smiled and said, why, do you always have the urge to stab me to death with a spear in your heart? Athena's joy froze on her face, and she said hesitantly, you know, of course I know. Xia Guixuan whispered in her ear, but I'm glad that you held back. As he spoke, his lips had already touched her earlobe and kissed her gently. Athena trembled all over, and instantly lost her strength. She leaned against the pillar and panted softly, actually, relatively speaking, I am particularly interested in you. Do you know why? Athena's thoughts were all messed up by him, and her body and soul were even more confused under his teasing. How could she answer? The eyes that were known as wisdom were gone, and only the gasps of distraction were left. No, I don't know, because you are the symbol of chastity in the setting, I like it very much. So you don't want them, Athena was thinking. Now Frigga and Aphrodite are watching in the room, and she has been reserved in front of them all her life, but now, how can this sense of depravity be better than theirs? But she heard Xia Guixuan say, I not only like chastity, but also like it to be broken because of me, just like the blasphemy under the crowd, and now, Athena wanted to say that you're perverted, but she couldn't say it. She knew that Xia Guixuan still had his pun when he said this. It was precisely because of this breaking and twisting that she found the previously fabricated sense of unreality, and found the multifaceted nature of being human, rather than a set symbol. Who said Athena had to be chaste and self-respecting? At least she didn't have to be in front of him. He liked not only chastity or breaking chastity, but also reality. And a rehearsal for facing another person in the future. Just as she was in a trance, she suddenly felt her waist loosen, and her clothes had slipped off gently. Athena subconsciously wanted to cover up, but her hands were held by him and pressed upwards. Just like a holy goddess tied to a pillar, the extreme sense of blasphemy made Athena's whole body feverish, burning through her cheeks and her heart, as if there was a desire to break everything that was growing vigorously. It should be like this, so what? It was the trophy of his great victory in this battle, so what if Aphrodite saw it? You can be with a man, but I can't? Xia Guixuan kissed her cheek and said slowly, you asked me just now, if you want to change your bloodline like Yu Sun, what should you do? Yu Sun is learning my origin method. You can't learn it, but you can try to use my origin to wash, Pa. Athena was about to say something, but her lips were blocked tightly. This is the first kiss of the real Athena, but it feels very familiar. The feeling of being kissed in the crowd has melted into her heart, as if she was the one being kissed at that time. The pleasure of indulgence in breaking taboos once again overwhelmed her soul. She was too lazy to say what she wanted to say, and she would wash it with the origin. Anyway, from the inside out, she has long been his. At the moment when the enemy was at the gates, Athena suddenly thought of the great chaos prophecy. The prophecy was verified so quickly. It's a pity that the plan of revenge in bed cannot be realized, and it can't be defeated at all. Speaking of which, it seems that there is no hatred. If the twilight of the gods is a trajectory set by others, then everyone is just a pawn, and the real enemy is the person behind the scenes. If everything is man-made and false, then he broke through it all and found the truth. Not only did he not have hatred, but he was grateful. As these thoughts were turning over in her mind, Athena groaned and leaned against a pillar absent-mindedly. Her eyes looked through the corridor of the palace and saw the clouds in the distance. It seemed that many people were peeking. It was really retribution. I watched their plays too much before, and now I have to go back. It's still such a special posture, and my hands are still pressed on the pillar. It turns out that those who watch the movie will become the movie. In a daze, I don't know if it's an illusion, but I always feel that there seems to be a Gundam poking its head out of the clouds. Athena suddenly had a malicious idea. After all, I respect you as my great-grandmother, but you want to see your great-granddaughter fall every day. When will it be your turn to taste it yourself? Chapter 571, Arhu finishes putting the blocks together. Master, we succeeded. Xiang Yuxin trotted into Xia Guixuan's temple. Xia Guixuan was still studying the Tai Chi in his hand. It was the control center that appeared in the Qianling fantasy world. Xiang Yuxin looked around curiously, and suddenly tilted her head to look under the table. There was no one. Xia Guixuan put down the Tai Chi unhappily. Master is on the recliner. There is no table below. What are you looking at? Strange, my lustful master doesn't even have a woman around him. Xiang Yuxin scratched her head, and suddenly ran over happily. Are you waiting for me? Xia Guixuan leaned forward quickly and held her head. Xiang Yuxin ran and ran, but couldn't get through, so she gave up helplessly. Fake master, go away, you girl who hasn't even grown all her hair is flirting all day long. Do you know what you are doing? How do you know my hair hasn't grown all my hair? Xia Guixuan pretended to hide her. You fucking. Xiang Yuxin held her head and squatted to defend herself. Forget it. Xia Guixuan sat back in his chair. What did you succeed in? Did you find the crack I want? Hearing the tone, he didn't hold out hope. As expected, he said to you soon, no. Master, what is the most important thing now? Xia Guixuan pondered again, a little absent-minded. At a time when it seemed that he should be preparing for the battle, Xia Guixuan was reveling every night, acting like a tyrant. However, after it seemed that the dust had settled in even the biggest enemy, Qianling fantasy realm had been destroyed. He should have been reveling in the world of wine and women, but he was not so confused. Since he asked Athena that day, he didn't even have a woman around him for several days. Athena had something to do, and was in seclusion to digest his essence, reshape her genes, and eliminate possible hidden dangers. The others had their own responsibilities and were working intensively. Even the rabbits were sent out. Now both sides are in a state of war preparation. The other side is obviously preparing to eliminate his already formed terrible force, and it is even possible that the army is on the way. Xia Guixuan didn't think that the other side only had one Gaia. In front of the supreme absolute strength, no matter how strong his side seemed, it was actually empty. When the enemy was really at the gate, it would be meaningless to do any show, and the only way to prepare for the hard battle in the future was to focus on it. If it weren't for the fact that Athena's body had hidden dangers that needed to be dealt with first, he might not have asked for Athena at this time. So Xiao Jiayu, Xiaoru, Zhao Yu each had their own duties and a lot of things to do, and Xia Guixuan himself was always studying how to get to the other side directly. Since Qianling Fantasy Realm is the other side's recycling bin or backup server, the other side must have a direct way to connect. I don't know why the other side didn't use such a channel, seemingly unaware. Maybe the other side also had an accident, and some things have been lost? Or is there some concern that they dare not use it? But once the other side really uses it, it will be unbearable to suddenly attack from a completely unknown position, and this must be mastered in advance. Whether it is for defense or for sneak attacks on the other side's heart, this is the most important way. Originally, Xia Guixuan thought that he was overthinking and that this passage might not exist at all. However, since Frigga and Aphrodite both had some kind of intuition, and his sister's situation, he had no idea what was going on. With this in mind, Xia Guixuan really didn't feel like messing around at this time. Master, could it be that he is fighting wits and courage with the air? Xiang Yuxin said, we have lived around the dragon domain for many years, and we have never seen or even heard of such a place. Moreover, our dragon clan is also experts in playing with space. If it is hidden in any space, we can dig it out. But now everyone has been searching all over the star field for a long time and found nothing. Xia Guixuan nodded. What do you say is successful? Luo Wei has completely seized the management rights of the entire control system of the dragon domain. The eternal command input now is that the dragon god is only a guardian, and everyone listens to the orders of the dragon king. The new dragon king is me, Xiang Yuxin. Xia Guixuan rolled his eyes and continued to lean back in his chair to watch Tai Chi. Isn't this expected? The other party is out of reach, and Luo Wei is the core of the dragon domain operations. It would be a miracle if he can't win. The key information here is that I am the Dragon King, Master. Oh. Come out and spray some water. Xiang Yuxun's excitement of jumping from an 18th tier princess to a little Dragon King was dampened by her master. She sat aside listlessly. I've never seen such a master. I made a great contribution this time, but I didn't even get a word of praise. Long Lolly really made a great contribution. If we were to talk about who played the biggest role this time besides Xia Guixuan himself, it might really be her. She had been lurking in the Dragon Clan as a traitor for so many years, and finally let Xia Guixuan show off his layout at the most appropriate time, solving the rear problem at almost no cost, and also obtaining an entire Dragon Clan force. She made a great contribution. Anyway, her contribution was much greater than that of Ahui, who is still hiding in the Gundam and building blocks. Xia Guixuan had to comfort her. Being the Dragon King is not enough for you? What praise do you want? But this Dragon King is not doing well, Master. Why is it not good? I'm Wuxiang. Managing such a powerful tribe is a bit like a little dragon pulling a big cart, right? Learn from her. The little fox dared to manage the descendant of God when she was just flying in the sky, but she is also Qianling now, and the combined individual is in the late-taking stage, Xia Guixuan said helplessly. So what do you want? I will give you an initiation, Master. Look, Luo Wei's technology is now enough to directly create a taking dragon god. You are so powerful, can't you directly create a taking little dragon king, Luo Wei? That is a combination of so many conditions. Besides, is there any meaning in creating a dragon god like this? Once the backdoor is activated, you have to do whatever you are told. Xiang Yuxin tugged at the corner of her clothes shyly. Originally, I did whatever Master asked me to do. Xia Guixuan, Xiang Yuxin, it took Luo Wei 30 years to create a dragon, even if he gave all the necessary conditions. That guy boasted to me back then, Saying that it would only take a few years, Xia Guixuan finally said, in fact, if I give you 30 years, you should be taking yourself. Xiang Yuxin's eyes widened. Master, although taking looks like a cabbage in the star field now, it is a collection of elites from many star fields and many planes. They are not all popping out like beans. It will take another 30 years. It would be good to have one taking in 30,000 years, Master, but you forgot a premise, Xia Guixuan said slowly. Almost all takings have no one to teach them. At most, people who have already become taking can provide some experience. Due to different personal paths and reference levels, they still have to rely on themselves in the end. But if there is a supreme to lead, do you think it will be that difficult for this supreme to be taking? You think the takings of Long Gaiao Zhaowai and the others are popping beans? That's because they are by my side. Xiang Yuxin chuckled and said, you finally admit that you are supreme. I didn't admit it before, because it was really close. Xia Guixuan stretched out his palm and let Tai Chi rotate in his palm. Now I have the world in my hands. Why do I still deny myself? Xiang Yuxuan's eyes were full of stars. She thought her master was so handsome. But Xia Guixuan said sadly, in fact, the supreme is nothing great, and the prestige has been dragged into the mud by a pig-brain flower with his own strength. Who are you talking about? Suddenly, a half-familiar and half-unfamiliar royal sister's voice came from outside the door, which was very nice. Xia Guixuan turned his mind for a while and remembered when he heard it. It seemed that Ahua had slipped this out when she was talking to Dijun before. So this voice is Ahua? Xia Guixuan looked up and saw a perfect figure walking into the light outside the door. Her hair is black, her eyes are slightly blue, she smiles with anger and joy, and her eyes are a little naughty. I don't know whether her overall appearance should be considered Eastern or Western, as if she combined the best advantages of different civilizations and blended into the most perfect face. Because she is the origin. All aesthetics are actually following her imprint. Chapter 572, You Ruined My Ahua. Xia Guixuan's eyes flashed with surprise. After developing henge, Xia Guixuan thought that he would never be amazed by any kind of beauty again. Henge should be the limit of the beauty of life. However, the facts have proved that the ancient saying that spring orchids and autumn chrysanthemums are good at their own things is a wise saying. In many cases, you can't tell which kind of beauty is more beautiful. For example, the woman in front of me now. In terms of facial features, it is obvious that henge is exquisite, and her quiet temperament adds points to her beauty, but the one in front of me does not go for a single extreme. There is a bit of Yan Wu's youthful dynamism, Ya Wu's fitness and wildness, and the charm of the fox spirit of Long Gaiao, as well as Yin Xiaoru's tenderness and innocence, and also has the quiet and lonely feeling of henge, and even a little bit of the tenderness of the elder sister and the majestic and stern expression when angry. Blended together, but not at all inconsistent, forming a very unique charm, and weird. Yes, the weird and the devilish, plus the Athena-like sense of holiness, even these can be blended together. Should we say that this is worthy of being called the Saint Demon Remnant, and the name of the Qianling fantasy world is still very accurate? Forget it, chaos is more accurate. She is a collection of all the characteristics, or all the characteristics come from her. In terms of figure, she is more explosive than change, her outfit is bolder, and her posture is hotter. It's just a light veil that vaguely covers the vital parts, allowing the snow-white skin to attract people's attention unscrupulously. It's a very Western painting, but more beautiful than any painting. Xia Guixuan's first reaction was to dress tightly for me, but then he thought, this temple was selected by the little fox, and the maids are all female heroes, no women. That's okay, you can appreciate it more. The more you appreciate it, the more beautiful it is. It can simply attract people's attention to her, as if you can't move away. It's too devilish. No, that's not right. Xia Guixuan absolutely didn't want to admit that he couldn't take his eyes off this pig brain. If he tried to find an excuse for himself, it should be like this: I thought that I could put together a disgusting thing, or a big stinky thing, or a little treasure. I was mentally prepared, right? Who can imagine a plate of brains in a hot pot restaurant? Right? Her eyes were even more terrifying before. They didn't even have eyelids, but they could still blink. Although her arms are pretty, what's the use? It's good enough to not be horrified when looking at a broken arm. Can it be beautiful? As a result, these building blocks were built into the most beautiful heavenly garden. What should I say? You broke my Ahua, will you compensate me? Or will you compensate me for my Gundam? Xiang Yuxin looked at her master's perverted face, turned her head to look at Ahua's chest, and then looked down at her own. She looked at Ahua's butt, and then turned around to look at the flatness that her little dress couldn't cover. He looked at Ahua's long legs, then looked down at his own short legs. He looked at Ahua's sexy red lips, then took out a mirror to look at himself. Then she ran away in tears. I'm as wide as you, my waist is as thin as yours, and I'm cuter than you. Why are you showing off? Why are you twisting your body? Master doesn't even look at me, Xia Guixuan. The little lolly ran past Ahua and was picked up by her. She said with a smile, where are you going, little sister? Do you still want to be taken? I'll teach you. Xia Guixuan kicked in the air. I have a master, I don't want you. Ahua stretched out a jade finger and casually fiddled with the little feet kicked by Long Lolly, and continued to smile. Your master won't teach you well. Xia Guixuan was furious. I don't believe it, because you are too clear, you have really grown up. The endless energy is enough to offset your growth cycle as an immortal species and the delayed cell aging as a formless person. You will become whatever you are supposed to become. Xia Guixuan's eyes were blank, and she stopped kicking. She even forgot that she was held in the air. She asked hurriedly, really? In fact, I can grow bigger now, but I always feel that it is changing. Yes, that is what has changed. Although that may be what you actually look like, it is not the norm, Ahua said with a smile. Do you want me to teach you? Xia Guixuan was overjoyed. Yes, yes. Ahua's face turned serious and she threw her out. No teaching, Xia Guixuan. Until she was thrown out, she didn't react to what happened. Xia Guixuan smiled kindly. It is indeed the real Ahua. Ahua walked forward slowly, suddenly leaned over, and stared at Xia Guixuan's eyes closely. The pleasant fragrance lingered around the tip of his nose, and Xia Guixuan blinked. After having eyelids, these eyeballs are much more pleasing to the eye. Ahua's eyeballs jumped out. Xia Guixuan stuffed it back without changing his expression. Be good and stop making trouble. Ahua let him stuff it in. After stuffing her eyes, she said coldly, my name is not Ahua, my name is Chaos. Be good. This name sounds a bit like a man, not as nice as Ahua. Why does the transliteration of Chaos sound like a man? I think it does. It's up to me to define. Why don't you just lie? It's fine if you pretend to be cool outside, but you also pretend to be cool with me, so you, Xia Guixuan paused and asked carefully, are you ready to pretend? Ahua was stunned for a long time before she realized what Xia Guixuan asked. She flew into a rage and kicked her. I knew that after you turned into human form, you would turn into devil. Xia Guixuan grabbed her feet and took a closer look at her pearly pink toes. This is really a ghost. Gaia looks so rough. Why can you be so pink? Go to hell. The kick pierced through Xia Guixuan's grip and kicked him in the stomach. Xia Guixuan turned over and stood still with a smile. You have good strength. So from today on, can I expect your fighting ability? Ahua said with a straight face. Was my fighting ability very poor before? Xia Guixuan didn't agree. It was more than poor. Except for showing off when he seemed to be very awesome, he couldn't do anything he was supposed to do. Even if he didn't have high expectations for the broken limbs, his performance was so poor that even Dijun could completely ignore his existence during the battle. You are the supreme being, but you are as miserable as this. I let Dijun get away on purpose. Ahua snorted coldly. Do you really think I can't catch up with a half-crippled Dijun? Intentionally, Xia Guixuan said. Tell me your reasons, because his ultimate goal is the same as those people. As you can see from the fact that he sent the Norse gods to find the chasm. The Thousand Edges fantasy realm sent people to conquer the heavens. It's not so much a desire for expansion as it is unwillingness, Ahua argued. We all have the same enemy. Although you can't cooperate because of your face, it's okay to act separately to see who is more powerful. Xia Guixuan sneered. He's my enemy, and we have a lot of blood debts against each other. Who allowed you to let him go privately? You need to have vision. Ahua patted Xia Guixuan's chest. A real man, don't you have such a broad mind? Besides, you must have confidence that you will crush him to death the next time you see him, right? Xia Guixuan said. Strange, you would consider so much? He almost said that you should compensate me for that stupid Ahua. Ahua said confidently, I just had a sudden impulse at that time, and now I am just looking for some reasons to convince you. When the real stupid Ahua appeared in front of him, Xia Guixuan finally couldn't hold it back and kicked her directly. With a scream, Ahua sat down at the door, sitting side by side with Xia Guixuan, who had been sitting there doubting her life after being thrown out. Ahua looked at Xia Guixuan and hugged her shoulders affectionately. Xia Long, I will teach you. Xia Guixuan's angry voice came from inside. I can teach my apprentice myself, I don't need you. I'm afraid that idiocy will be contagious. Xia Guixuan looked at this beautiful big sister with sympathy. She is really beautiful, but it's a pity that she is mentally retarded. I heard that it is illegal to have sex with a mentally retarded person. The master's interest has been tossed away. But for some reason, Xia Long always felt that there was a sly light in this sister's eyes. Chapter 573, Raise your perspective. Before, you said that you were the god of trade and that you were the god of trade. I didn't comment. I didn't support or oppose it. Do you know why? Xia Guixuan pulled the two guys back and began to teach his apprentice seriously. Xia Guixuan sat on the floor, her feet bent, blinking her eyes at her master. She looked bright and clear, but actually she was confused. When it came to cultivation and enlightenment, she might not even be as good as the little fox. How could she discuss this with her master? Ahua also sat opposite her with her legs bent. Her eyes seemed to be saying, "Little sister, do you want to play the game of you hit me and I hit you?" Xia Guixuan finally gave up asking Ahua for advice and told her master honestly, "I don't know. First of all, this law is a subdivision law, which belongs to the category of contract law. In other words, the level is relatively low. It's okay to prove the formlessness, but it's too clear and vague. Even if you really succeed, your combat effectiveness is relatively low. In high-end battles, you can only play a supporting role." Xia Guixuan said, "It's enough to be able to assist the master, but you are the Dragon King now. Shouldn't the Dragon King be majestic?" Before Xia Guixuan could say anything, Ahua clapped her hands first. "This way, Rua." Full of majesty, Xia Guixuan showed a look of seeing a confidant. "How did you know I wanted to say this?" Xia Guixuan was so angry that he suddenly pointed his finger. With a bang, Ahua turned into a Gundam, and its electronic eyes were still blinking. "It's much more pleasing to the eye this way." Xia Guixuan clapped his hands. "I suggest that you change into Gundam form when you act cute in the future. Look at how sensible Long Yao is. When she is charming, she turns into fox form. When she is cute, she turns into a figurine. Learn from her." Ahua said angrily. "You don't need to change. I have one myself." As he said that, he took out a Gundam figurine, which grew larger with a whoosh, and then opened the hatch and got in. Xia Guixuan still said, "It's much more pleasing to the eye." Ahua sneered. "Pervert." Xia Guixuan raised his hand to hide her, but Ahua took a fighting stance. The two of them stared at each other for a moment, then snorted in unison and put their hands down again. Xia Guixuan inexplicably felt that the two seemed to be quite a match. In fact, she also thought that the master was a pervert. Such a beautiful woman, isn't it pleasing to the eye? She had to be put in a Gundam. Could it be that the master was also a women are not as fun as Gundam Party? Oh, by the way, the master had also told Long Yao before that figurines were not as fun. He was originally a pervert. God knows that Xia Guixuan's thoughts at this time are different from those towards Long Yao. At first, he really had no feelings for Long Yao. He thought that a handmade figurine was more cute and easier to deal with. Now, he really has feelings for Ahua. He thinks that this girl is too beautiful. She has been involving his thoughts and he actually feels a little heartbeat. Maybe this is also very similar to the concept that the little foxes are naturally close to him. After all, he also practices to comprehend the universe and the way of heaven, so he is close to her in his bones. Just like this, Ahua's identity is even more bizarre than Long Yao's at the beginning. Long Yao is just a little ethically questionable, which is nothing for a pervert anyway. What about Ahua? Is she really fucking the universe as Yijun said? It's too fucking terrifying. It has exceeded the scope of what a regular pervert can bear. Forget it. What's more tragic is that this is not determined by whether he is perverted enough, because he has no status to suppress Ahua. Ahua can ignore you, instead of being like Athena who has a chance as long as you want. Don't look at her light veil at this time, she seems to be very coquettish. God knows if this idiot will hit people if he really gets the idea. No one can predict Ahua's thoughts. It would be better if you just be a Gundam and stop seducing me. So, letting her be a Gundam is not because she is perverted, but because her perverted concentration is not enough. Xia Guixuan coughed twice, and simply ignored her, and went to teach his disciples seriously. There are many dragons engaged in the trade of the heavens, and no one has preached in this direction. In my opinion, this is like a carrot hanging on the neck of a donkey, just an incentive direction. Since you are the king, you have to look up from this direction. Xia Guixuan looked up at him. Apart from thinking he was very handsome, it seemed that there was no other gain from looking up. Oh, is it the wrong angle? Xia Guixuan moved forward, sat in front of his feet and looked up again. Xia Guixuan, with a bang, Long Lolly shrank into a ball while holding the bag on her head. Gundam on the side was shocked. This lolly has a future. Why didn't he notice it before? Xia Guixuan gnashed his teeth, and suddenly remembered teaching the fox, which didn't seem to matter. Was he destined not to have an apprentice in this life? Why was it so bad to teach his apprentices? This guy was supposed to study hard before, and he was so smart when he learned the Star Dragon communication. Did he become a dead man after becoming the Dragon King, or was it because Ahua was by his side? He took a deep breath and continued to teach. Originally, the spread of the Dragon Clan throughout the heavens was a spread of consciousness, just like antivirus software to bring the changes in various planes back on track. Trade was nothing more than a name. When the dragon god appeared in the ancient Chinese wilderness as the candle-bearing dragon, it was probably because of this factor, not to do business. Xia Guixuan said as if she understood. She felt that she still liked doing business very much. No, she liked those shiny things. Well, so many dragons go straight for the shiny things. They think they are good dragons, so they use trading. So the master got to the point. Trading is not the main body of the Dragon Clan at all. It is just a name spread among the heavens for the purpose of monitoring and disinfection. So, if we raise the perspective of trade to monitoring or observing the heavens, then we will instantly have the idea of taking and even the path to the supreme, Xia Guixuan said seriously. The difference is that before, we were secretly controlled as eyes and ears and swords and guns, but now it's for ourselves. Xia Guixuan finally got into the rhythm of business. After thinking for a while, she nodded and said, I understand, Master. This is also for the ethnic group to find a foothold and the meaning of its own existence. Xia Guixuan was very pleased. Sure enough, you are very insightful. Isn't this a better situation? But Master, there are still many ethnic groups distributed in the heavens, and they are still under the control of the other party, Xia Guixuan said. For example, those in Master's hometown, Xia Guixuan said lightly. This is the outpost with the other party. The battle for the Dragon Clan has only officially begun from now on, and this process is your path to taking. Xia Guixuan thought for a while in a daze, and said with a strange look, Master, don't you care about my taking? Xia Guixuan said angrily, as a master, of course I hope you are too clear, but you also believe in pig brains. Do you really think I am afraid of you growing up? If you have the ability, you will grow up. When you grow up, you will not be as stupid as you are now. Before he finished speaking, he watched a little Lolita grow up slowly, and became a well-proportioned body, a youthful and beautiful face, and the iconic little dragon horns on her forehead. But the little dress on her body became smaller because it could not keep up with the growth of her body, and became a short skirt. The small hillock that was only big enough to be held in one hand was squeezed out of the snow, and it was squeezed out from the top, and there was even a cleavage. Although it was awkward to wear, it was really beautiful. If a person is beautiful, no matter what she wears, she will look good. This is called a seller's show, and buyers should not learn it. The young and beautiful girl version of Xia Guixuan blinked her eyes. Is it beautiful, Master? Ahua is not the only one who can transform. The corners of Xia Guixuan's mouth twitched for a long time, and before he could respond, Gundam next to him spoke. According to your master's instructions, you have to look from a higher angle, so it's white, and it even has lace edges. You lustful lolly, should it be cotton with a bear print? Xia Guixuan said righteously. How dare you say that to me when you're just wrapping a strip of cloth around it? This is gauze. It's woven from clouds and mist. Do you know how to appreciate it? Bang! Before he finished speaking, Gundam and the girl were thrown out together. Xia Guixuan was furious. Go to work. I have something serious to do. Am I here to discuss colors and prints with you? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 574, The Inner and Outer Worlds. Except for Xia Guixuan himself, few people thought that his business was important, because it seemed like a hysterical battle of wits and courage with the air. After all, you are the supreme being. You can't sense so many areas of divine thoughts. What's the point of asking others to find it? especially under the premise that the universe is evolved by Ahua. Ahua said there is nothing, so what is there to find? Even Long Yao, the military advisor, and Athena, who is also known as the wisdom of war, did not support Xia Guixuan's idea this time. They just listened to him and did whatever he asked them to do. The one who supported it the most was Xiaoju, because Xiaoju did not believe in Ahua's words. Chaos's status is too far away from mortals. What kind of standard answer can it be if it says there is nothing? It's just a cute Gundam. From the strategic perspective of a military commander, Xia Guixuan's idea is at least prepared for any eventuality and worthy of support. So the drones spread the star field and have explored the territories of other star field civilizations. For example, east of Zelter. For example, the upper and lower dimensions, there are actually endless and vast star fields. Many civilizations on the market star originated from these. The civilizations in the universe are far more than the few that Xia Guixuan has seen and heard. That is an endless topic. Then Xiaoju discovered that other star field civilizations were also in a mess at this time. Because many planets in their star field ran away, they were sucked back by Ahua to build blocks. It doesn't matter if the planets are abandoned, but some stars are sucked away, which is a big deal. Those are the stars that the life of other planets depends on. How can they live without them? So Xiaoju cooperated with Yin Xiaoru during this period, spreading diplomacy, using various means of coercion and inducement, and promised to help them create artificial stars. After spending a lot of money, the effect is not very good. How can artificial stars be so efficient? At this stage, there are too many people who have offended. It's like being surrounded by enemies. If a strong enemy comes at this time, I'm afraid it will be a pill. If it's like this, how can Ahua still be credible? Others get the Supreme and crush the four sides, but their Kanglong star field gets such a Supreme, which is just a debit that messes up. Those who hear it are sad and those who see it cry. But you can't object to this kind of thing. What's wrong with people wanting to put their bodies back? Good people will not stop it, they will only find ways to help clean up the mess, such as helping to build artificial stars now. No matter how much money is spent, it is not as important as a person being intact. So Xiaoju and Xiaoru didn't say anything, and tried their best to spread the diplomacy of all parties. They also took this opportunity to search for the cracks that Xia Guixuan wanted to find, which was a two birds with one stone. As Xia Guixuan was raised by Xia Guixuan, she also began to participate in their great cause. With a combination of the Dragon Clan's strength and technology, plus the power of the Dragon Clan's suppression, Xiaoju and Xiaoru finally breathed a sigh of relief, and the pressure suddenly eased. Actually, your master didn't tell you the whole story, Xiaoju said to Xia Guixuan who came to cooperate with him. Your Dragon Clan is so powerful that you can not only monitor and observe, but also rule. Even if you don't want to rule, you can also promote ideology, such as the messenger of peace and justice. And finally become the common belief of multiple races in the universe, the controller behind the scenes. In front of Xiaoju, Xia Guixuan didn't act cute as she did in front of Xia Guixuan. A little lolly huddled in the wide office chair, holding a teacup and drinking water leisurely. Master didn't say that I have to figure this out by myself, or simply say that this more expanded thing involves different paths. He doesn't want to point the way for me directly, and I need to consider and choose it myself. Xiaoju leaned back. So you're not stupid. Xia Guixuan glanced at Yin Xiaoru who was leaning against the wall drinking a drink not far away, and said with a grin, I heard that some people were also cute when they were apprentices. Yin Xiaoru was stunned and smiled. So you mean to say that he is actually the stupid one? I didn't say that. I am a good little dragon who respects teachers. I think you want to destroy the ancestors. Yin Xiaoru grabbed her ears and said, little girl, do you know what a man is? Is it fun to flirt with him? Don't flirt with him now for fun. If he really pounces on you, you will be scared and run away. Xia Guixuan's eyes flashed. No matter if I am afraid or not when it comes to real, I know that I will never meet another man in my life who can go to the holy mountain of the Dragon Clan alone with a sword and ignore the injuries on his body when I am in danger. It's the same if you become his disciple. Maybe. Xia Guixuan didn't dwell on this, and smiled nonchalantly, but said, but I definitely like such a man. And I like to see him continue to do so, just like now he's holding back his anxiety to find a crack, which is actually similar to holding back his anxiety to go to the holy mountain at that time. At that time, it was for me, and now it's for my sister. Xiaoju and Yin Xiaoru looked at each other, Both of them were a little surprised. Damn, who said this little lolly is funny? She knows it in her heart. The difference is that there was a specific holy mountain back then, but now there is only an illusory weight. Xia Guixuan said, no matter what, I will help Master find what he is looking for. What if it really doesn't exist? The little lolly jumped out of the chair. Master said it exists, then it must exist. If not, then we are looking for it in the wrong way. This licking. Xia Guixuan thinks that next time I will give you the seed under the table, which will definitely make him feel comfortable. But then again, what Xia Guixuan said seems to make sense. If it can't be found, it may not be that it doesn't exist. It may be that everyone's thinking has entered a misunderstanding and is not looking for it this way. If it can be found on the surface, then the other party has already used it, so why is it our turn to look for it now? So what kind of reverse thinking should be changed? Master, Ling Moxu is reporting to Xia Guixuan, the divinity of golden water has been absorbed. I think I am almost too clear. Yan Wuai was also reporting beside him, the divinity of fire and wood has been absorbed. Xia Guixuan nodded and said, the Thousand Edges fantasy world itself is of earth nature, so if I reopen the earth, water, fire and wind, with you two as the two poles, in charge of this sub-universe, do you have a confidence? Ling Moxu said, Master, why don't you just close this plane? Isn't it just an evolution of a database? This is just for the sake of understanding. It's like Ahu's body evolved into a plane. She took her body back, but the plane is still there and will not disappear unless it is intentionally destroyed, Xia Guixuan said. After countless years of expansion and mergers, the Thousand Edges fantasy world is no longer a concept of a plane, but a universe, an inner world. Yan Wuai said, is it very important? Well, Xia Guixuan explained, if we divide people into the inside and outside, muscles and bones are as important as internal organs. Well, in fact, this is Ahu's inside and outside. Corresponding to the world structure, we have the main world. Of course we also have to set up an inner world, which is also the two yin and yang, Ling Moxu said. In this way, we have become the main gods of the universe. Xia Guixuan pinched her cheeks. You are the two main gods, the gods of the two yin and yang, handsome or not, Ling Moxu smiled. It was a magical experience to go from a slave girl to a main god. But to be honest, there is not much joy. Everyone has practiced until now, and some desires have disappeared. It can understand why Xia Guixuan has never had much desire to rule. It's almost the same reason. Fortunately, everyone still has the desire for men and women. Yan Wuyu didn't think it was that great. Instead he asked, is the so-called inner world useful in war? Yes, the two universes provide energy to each other, and no one can easily stop the power that erupts, including myself, Xia Guixuan said. The next stage of the war will be very difficult. In a sense, it can also be regarded as a retreat or backup. This inner world will not directly overlap with the main world plane, but will be taken away by me, so that even if everyone is defeated and hides in the inner world, no one can find it. Oh wait, what did I say? Ling Moxu said, the master said that if we lose the war, we can hide in the inner world and start over. But why did the master say that you take it away? Does it mean that you and we are not on the same battlefield? No, if I take it away, no one can find it. Xia Guixuan suddenly jumped 3 feet high. Ahua, Ahua. Get out here and die. Chapter 575 The Origin of Life. Yan Wuai and Ling Moxu stared in amazement at the fight between Xia Guixuan and Gundam. To be precise, it was Gundam who was running away, and Xia Guixuan chased him all the way. Stop right there, I'm not hiding anything. Do you think I'm an idiot? Take it out. How could Gundam outrun Xia Guixuan? He was caught in a few breaths, and the two of them twisted into a ball. Gundam was too big, and Xia Guixuan also became bigger. The two giants were wrestling on the ground, and Yan Wuai and Ling Moxu covered their foreheads. There's no hope, these are two fucking supremas, Yan Wuai couldn't help but swear. Ling Moxu twitched her mouth, it's actually quite loving, Yan Wuai complained, a real man should ride Gundam. As he spoke, Xia Guixuan finally gained the upper hand and pressed Gundam under him and pinched him. Gundam struggled hard, I really didn't hide anything, I don't believe it. Xia Guixuan reached into the cabin, how many parts did you hide before? No one counted them. In the end, the whole thing was put together and we didn't know where they came from. Now you say you didn't hide anything, no one will believe you. Gundam twisted hard to stop him from touching. Who told you that I put the whole thing together? The universe is so big, how can I recycle it all? If I really recycle it, the universe will probably be gone. Are you mentally retarded? Then why are you so coquettish now? I just barely put together a golden and jade appearance to show you a pervert. Isn't it nice? But in fact, a bunch of things are not put together. Fuck, who wants to look at your white meat? Don't talk nonsense, I want to see what you have hidden. Yanling and the others turned their heads away, unable to bear to look. The way he was touching Gundam was really. He was still pulling the outer shell of Gundam. It was like raping and undressing. Break armor, break armor, break armor. As expected, the shell of the Gundam was torn to pieces, revealing a tiny Ahua underneath. Ahua took the opportunity to slip under the giant Xia Guixuan's ribs and ran away again. Xia Guixuan turned over on the spot, and found that there was indeed nothing on the Gundam parts on the ground, so he chased after Ahua and knocked her down, and she also adapted to change back to her original size. Yan Wu Yu, Ling Mozu, are you looking for something or playing with Ahua? Ahua was only wearing a piece of gauze, and you could see the end of it at a glance. What else could you touch? Oh, you really touched it. Xia Guixuan's hand froze on the gauze, and his expression was a little strange. Ahua glared at him, and stopped struggling, just staring at him. The two looked at each other, and Xia Guixuan's expression gradually changed from righteousness to little embarrassment. Ahua gnashed her teeth and said, have you touched enough? Ahem. Xia Guixuan moved his hand away. Because I really feel that Ahua's place is different from others, and there may be something missing inside, such as mammary glands. It is true that the appearance is just for show, and it cannot be considered a complete person. As for the difference in touch, most people may not be able to experience it, but it's a pity that he touched it too much. Ahua was sneering, are you looking for something or to touch me? Xia Guixuan coughed dryly, looking for something, have you found it? No, do you want to go deeper? Xia Guixuan couldn't hold it anymore and stood up to run away. Ahua took advantage of the situation and pushed him over, sneering, is it my turn? Xia Guixuan. Ahua reached out to Tao Zhe. I'm looking for something too. Xia Guixuan struggled hard. Fuck, are you sick? Why can you find things when you can, but I'm sick when I find things? Xia Guixuan, you're used to being an emperor, right? Am I your subordinate? I didn't hide anything, really? I don't believe it. Ahua laughed, what is this big lump? Fuck, Yan Wu Yu Ling Mozu left the scene expressionlessly. Father God's humiliation Avi, I can't bear to watch it anymore. I thought you would just beat him up at most, but you actually have this trick. This pig-brained flower's brain circuit is really not something that ordinary people can keep up with. Xia Guixuan couldn't keep silent no matter how wrong he was. The two sides soon wrestled together and fought until it was dark. The two supreme beings fought to the edge of the universe, and even the avenue was wiped out. In the middle of the night, Xia Guixuan finished his work with a sullen face and went to the side hall of Frigga and Aphrodite. The two goddesses sat opposite each other, each of them putting their palms together to strengthen the induction. They have been in this state for several days. They said that the induction is indeed becoming clearer and clearer. It is true, but they just don't know where it is. It's useless for Xia Guixuan to scold them, otherwise he wouldn't have quarreled with Ahua like this. But Ahua really didn't hide anything. And according to the fact that there is something incomplete in Ahua's body, Ahua herself is missing something. If that place exists, it is very likely that Ahua herself has not found it yet, and it may not be on her body. The clue is broken again? Looking at it now, it is obvious that there is still no progress. It is completely the same as the previous few days. Xia Guixuan is so depressed, let alone considering how to continue to face Ahua who is enthusiastically trying to Tao Zhe next time. That is really a mess, and it is getting more and more perverted. You pervert, use it on the enemy. I've never seen you being awesome against the enemy. You're better at making trouble than anyone else. Just when I was feeling depressed, I received a foreign communication from Xia Guixuan, and I have studied it and think that the thing may have been hidden by Ahua. Xia Guixuan said helplessly, I thought so too, but she couldn't find anything on her, it may not be on her. Our thinking may have entered a blind spot. For example, we have been searching around the Dragon Domain or the Thousand Edges fantasy world. This idea is wrong. Xia Guixuan became interested. Tell me more. If such a passage really exists, it should be a very mysterious place. You can find the entrance from anywhere and you can also go out from anywhere. It is impossible to just reach the passage near the Dragon Domain from the other party's location. That doesn't make sense. Xia Guixuan was stunned. It made sense. My sister's quick arrival in the dragon domain does not mean that this place is specifically leading to the dragon domain. Otherwise, Frigga and the others have nothing to do with the dragon clan. Why is the sensed crack directly related to the dragon domain? Why is the crack at the beginning of creation next to the dragon domain? Where does it make sense? According to Frigga and the others' perception, it should be the birth of the origin. The crack itself means chaos, so they thought that Ahua hid it. Since it is chaos, it corresponds to the birth of the entire universe. What does it have to do with the dragon realm? This is misled by the direction where the sister appeared, so the searched location is wrong. It is not a specific place at all, but an abstract meaning. It can enter from anywhere and go out from anywhere because the whole world was born there. So the other party can't find it either. To put it another way, in fact, every space in the universe can be interconnected, which is also the ultimate of space. If it must be materialized as a physical object, it should be based on the divinity of reproduction and creation, and visualized and materialized by oneself. Frigga and Aphrodite are not strong enough, and they don't have special magical powers. Once they are given the laws of time and space, they can create this channel and materialize it at the right angle. And this is fine if it is materialized. Once it is taken back by Ahua, it is very likely that the universe will really collapse. Because this is the origin of the universe. Xia Guixuan put his hands on the foreheads of Frigga and Aphrodite respectively, and said in a deep voice, I give you the power of time and space, combined with the divinity of reproduction, visualize and materialize, try again. The mysterious divine light enveloped the two goddesses. Xia Guixuan, who is superior, can embody most of the mysteries. The so-called time and space, he has already seen everything. Creation and reproduction, someone has completed. So the origin of the universe, faintly manifested. Between the three people, silently, a crack gradually opened up. It seems to accommodate one person, like the boundless world. It is small to say it is a crack, and it is boundless to say it is a chasm. It seems to absorb everything, and it seems to evolve thousands of things. It seems that life originates from here, embracing everything. It seems to be the end of human pursuit, the end of the Tao. Xia Guixuan hasn't felt this kind of touch as if it is the origin of creation for a long time. Maybe it has something to do with a hard search these days. It's too damn hard to find. Finally saw the dawn. Time and space intertwined in it, Xia Guixuan could definitely figure out where he was going. He walked in slowly. Xia Guixuan. How dare you come in? Ahua's exasperated voice came from behind. If you dare to touch it, I'll fight you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.